There's a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man.
Hey Hitler, you probably didn't even hate the Jews. That was just the meth making you crazy, dog.
Both of you, get back in the closet. You deserve a ass whooping. All of you, get back in the closet.
How
Go
much does it
yourself.
cost for fascism? How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
They're evil. They are actively doing evil. So treat them like the evil that they are.
The time to start is now, right? The time to plant a tree is 10 years ago, and the second best time is now. Strikes are the most effective way to stop profits, get demands, and force policy changes. If you can shut down profit, you can make any politician do anything.
It's time to stop pretending otherwise. It's time to be ruthless, and time to afford them the same amount of grace that they give to their Palestinian victims, because they are only going to get more and more ruthless with their victims if you don't.
Young protesters who don't identify with any political party or idea.
Welcome to the stream.
Say they want to live in peace and dignity.
We're here because of the corruption and injustices perpetrated by Congress and the government, supported by police and politicians. There's no one to bring justice.
I'm glad they won't be able to spin it as shutting down the internet like they tried to do in Nepal. Like, no, this isn't because social media was taken away. This isn't because TikTok was banned. This is because of corruption. Don't try to smear these protesters. Their demands are specific and they're loud.
They want the government to back down from a pension fund reform that forces everyone under the age of 18 to join a pension provider. And they say the government is not doing enough to fight crime. More than 5,000 Peruvians.
Yeah, plastic barricades do nothing when you have a bunch of trash and a lighter, you know?
Have been killed in violent crimes.
Plastic barricades can be set on fire. They're useless.
During Dina Boluarte's presidency. And police say there have been more than 15,000 extortion cases in the last
There's a lot of stuff that the police use that can be set on fire.
presidency. And police say there have been more than 15,000 extortion cases in the last 6 months.
I'm fed up with the extortions. A bus driver from a route I use was killed. I'm deeply saddened by his death. There's really a lot of crime.
Protesters say they're frustrated with corruption by politicians and government officials, as well as members of the judiciary.
We are all disappointed with this government. What's left for us? Go out and march. It's good that young people have reacted now because they have no future with this government.
Boluarte herself is facing investigation for corruption and her alleged role in the deaths of demonstrators.
When Dina Boluarte took office, the army and police killed 49 Peruvians. That triggered a long period of silence. People afraid.
Look at this journalist. American media can take note. You don't have to be standing with the police. In fact, you're more in danger standing with the police than standing with the protesters. Any journalist can do what she's doing right here. Whether that be on the streets of LA, the streets of Chicago, or on flotillas on their way to Gaza.
Afraid of repression, preferred to stay indoors. But the increasing frustrations now have unleashed this wave of anger.
A recent opinion poll says Boluarte has less than 4% approval, one of the world's most unpopular presidents. However, she says her government is fighting crime and says protesters are violent and must learn to respect the law to live in peace. Protesters warn politicians to listen to their demands. Nearly 7 million Peruvians under the age of 29 will vote in the general elections scheduled for April next year. That's nearly 1/4 of the adult population. A voice from the streets that will be heard at the ballot box. Mariana Sanchez, Al Jazeera, Lima.
So, I wanted to hear Kyle's take on this, but coming at it from the angle of David Cross speaking out against him, I don't think that's the angle to go, but we'll see.
Talking a lot about this Riyadh Comedy Festival, this Saudi Arabian comedy festival.
Because David Cross isn't exactly a arbiter of moral truth, you know? He's just known for walking audience members for his political takes. That's about it.
Festival, and how basically everybody who signed up to do it, it's like a who's who of the biggest fucking pathetic sellouts in the comedy world. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the comedy world partook in this. Bill Burr, I believe he already went, and he already did his set. And so for the first time...
Kyle Kalinske watching Ebb and Flow? Well then, why don't I just watch Ebb and Flow? Oh wait. No, he's resource gathering, and this is an efficient way to view content.
That I've heard, he's breaking his silence on going to Saudi Arabia to do comedy and get some blood money. And needless to say, this is humiliating. Like, what you're about to hear here is just pathetic. It's almost like he either didn't hear the backlash or he heard it and is pretending not to hear it, and he's just like casually talking about what it was like to perform for murderous theocratic dictators who bought him. So here we go. Let's listen and then we'll break it down. Shout out to the Ebb and Flow YouTube channel. Everybody go subscribe to the Ebb and Flow YouTube channel. I'm getting it from his video on it. Here we go.
Let me play that for you. The friendly. Now we're going to Saudi Arabia, and Josh is going like, dude, I feel good now. I feel good. And I go, I don't know, man. I'm fucking nervous about this one. You know, this is like we're in the shit here. Like they have never had a comedy festival, and you know, I don't know what's gonna happen here. And like my whole fucking idea of Saudi Arabia is what I've seen like on the news. I really think I'm gonna fucking land, you know, and everybody's gonna be screaming death to America, and they have like fucking machetes and want to like chop my head off, right? Because this is what I've been fed about that part of the world, right? And we're flying over it. It's nothing but like these long roads and sand. It's like nothing. And I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck did I get myself into? And then we land, and now here we are, right? And we end up driving into town. It's a city everything, right? And everybody's just regular. They're dressed different, but they're regular. Like people just shooting the shit. Hey, how you doing? You know, welcome. We're saying, hey, we know we're happy to be here. And we're driving around, and then I'm just like going like, I thought this place was gonna be like really tense.
Bill, this is what they paid for. Notice how he's trying to flip it all and make it so that, oh, actually, the more liberal, open-minded, humanitarian thing to do is to go and take the Saudi blood money and then come back here and tell you how wonderful Saudi Arabia is. He's trying to flip it like, I'm just being the open-minded cultural person who's open to different people. If you're against me going, I guess you're the asshole conservative who thinks our culture is superior to their culture. Oh, that's so dishonest. That's so fucking dishonest. Bill, just admit it. You took Saudi blood money, you became their little fucking propagandist, you sold out, and that's what this is all about. Admit it. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to flip it like, oh, if you're against me going, somehow you're the asshole. No. This is what they paid for you to say exactly this. So, oh, it turns out they're just like regular people. Yeah, no shit. The people are like regular people. You're not taking money from the people. You're taking it from the government that chopped Jamal Khashoggi into little bits and pieces. You're taking it from the government that has fucking slavery in the year 2025. You're taking money from the government that's doing a genocide in Yemen. Jesus Christ, man. I had such high hopes for Bill Burr. He was so right on his class analysis, shitting on billionaires all the time. He was right. And then he goes and says some shit like this and does some shit like this, and it's like, oh, you're just a fraud just like the fucking rest of them. Did you guys know there's literally a video of him talking about exactly this and mocking the people who did it? There's a video of him like saying like, oh yeah, the people go to like Saudi Arabia and do a comedy festival and sell out. And then he fucking does it. And again, here he's acting like he didn't hear any of the fucking reaction, any of the fucking scandal and the outrage. Bro, everybody's on your ass for this, as they should be, because you're one of the few people on that list who we thought had some morality and some principles, right? Him, Jim Jeffries, there were a few of them that it was like, really? You guys? Some of them, I expect Andrew Schultz to be a total fucking pathetic sellout, right? I expect Chappelle is sort of 50-50. I could see it going either way. But a lot of those guys, it's like, there were only a handful. It was like, we had hope for you. And now it's like, oh, there's no fucking hope for you at all.
And I'm thinking like, is that a Starbucks? Next to a Pete's Coffee? Next to a Burger King? Next to a McDonald's? Next to a Pizza Hut? Next to a Dunkin' Donuts? Next to a Krispy Kreme? Next to a Cheesecake Factory? Next to a KFC? Next to a Chili's? They got a fucking chill.
Yeah, so as long as the country reflects Western hegemony and pays you enough money, Bill Burr has no problem with it.
Please over here. Oh, they're just like, oh, it's okay if I take blood money.
This is tipping the cap to the people that set up the festival over there. When they first went to set it up over there, the rules on what they had about what you could say and what you couldn't say in Saudi Arabia, the people around the festivals were like, all right, well, man, that's game, set, match. If this is like all you can talk about and you want some good comedians, like, this isn't going to work. And then to their credit, they said, all right, what do we got to do? And they just negotiated it all the way down to like, you can talk about anything.
Imagine what the prerequisites were before they negotiated it down to not criticizing religion, the government, the royal family.
You know, other than a couple things, which was basically, you know, religion, don't make fun of the royals. And other than that, it was all, everything was like open.
Oh, that's the most embarrassing thing I've ever heard. Bill, did you actually just say that? I mean, I could talk about anything except religion and the royals, which, I don't know, is like fucking everything. When you're in a theocratic dictatorship, it's like, oh, I can talk about everything except the theocratic dictatorship. So, in other words, I can't talk about Jamal Khashoggi, I can't talk about the slaves they have, I can't talk about the genocide in Yemen that they're facilitating, I can't talk about any of that, I can't make fun of the people in power, can't point out that they're completely and utterly anti-free speech and put people to death for saying the wrong thing, put people to death for apostasy, right? They're killing people for being atheists, and you're not allowed to bring up religion or atheism. Oh, other than the things that I obviously am not allowed to mention, I can talk about anything else. Oh, really? They're letting you talk about fucking kazoos and bidets? Wow. What amazing freedom they have over there. They're just like us.
The royals loved the show. Everyone was happy. The people that were doing the festival were thrilled. And, yeah, it was just this great, positive thing. And I got to tell you, just to be a part of that was fucking amazing. And the comedians that I've been talking to just saying, like, dude, you can feel it. They wanted it. They wanted it. They wanted you to, like the people want, like, you know, they go online and they see it. They want to, they want to, like, see real stand-up comedy. So
this is the most actor energy I've ever gotten from Bill Burr. Like, he's giving more Hollywood actor than tell it like it is comedian than he ever has before in his life.
So,
if you know what I mean.
Mind-blowing experience. Definitely top 3 experiences I've ever had. I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I could not have a better time doing shows for you guys.
Honestly, it was just a great show. I'm glad everybody had a good time. Blah, 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 blah. It was honestly an honor to work with everybody. Like, bro, when did you become this theater kid, you know?
And it was great to experience that part of the world and to be a part of the first comedy festival over there in Saudi Arabia.
No shade to theater kids. You guys aren't taking Saudi blood money, most of you.
Yeah.
So, how much did it cost for his principles, for his values, for his integrity? How much did it cost? Well, the people who got paid the most got paid 1.6 million, and some got, you know, he got somewhere between $1 million and 1.6 million. That's my.
These are rumors, and we don't know how much they were actually paid, but we can assume it is a lot. Some of the higher numbers floated were 1.6 million, so it could be more.
My guess is somewhere between 1 million and 1.6 million. My guess is closer to the higher number, probably closer to 1.6 million. That's how much his integrity cost. And now here he is pretending like, you know, I haven't heard the backlash. I don't know that there's any backlash. And acting like, oh, let me just tell you guys about this crazy experience I had. Like, fuck you, man. And you know what? As I said, I could almost understand it if you're a struggling comedian and they're offering you like 200 grand or some shit. I could almost understand that. I don't. Because I think it's like taking money from fucking Nazis, right? But I could almost get it. You're Bill Burr. You don't need the fucking money. Dave Chappelle doesn't need the fucking money. So really, you guys are just soulless. You're soulless hacks. And the point is, and everybody's been making this point, but it's so true. It's like, I no longer care what you have to say about anything. Because you're just a walking billboard for whoever will give you money, right? Like, I don't know what you actually believe. I don't know what's at your core. I just know you're for sale. And so I can't say, I said this with Tim Dillon too. He sold out for $375,000, then got fucking fired anyway, right? And it's like, okay, well, do me a favor and shut the fuck up about Gaza and Netanyahu and Israel, because you're so outraged about fucking genocide, but then you were willing to take $375,000 from people doing a genocide, just in Yemen. Why is it the kids of Palestine deserve our love and respect and support, but the kids of Yemen can go fuck themselves? Because the people killing them gave you money? No, fuck that. Fuck that. These people, God damn it. So, by the way, I'm not the only one who's super fucking outraged by this and annoyed by this and really lost all of my respect for Bill Burr. But shout out to David Cross, the comedian David Cross, because he released a statement on his website. I think Duncan Trussell did too, and the Duncan Trussell thing was some both sides bullshit. Trying to, oh, let me see what both sides are saying. Let me steel man both sides and see what they mean. Fuck you. Steel man the fucking bloodthirsty assholes who have slavery and are doing a genocide. Here's why it's okay to take money from the slavers. Like, fuck you. God damn it. But David Cross did not mince words. So he said the following. Ready? I am disgusted and deeply disappointed in this whole gross thing that people I admire with unarguable talent would condone this totalitarian fiefdom for what? A fourth house? A boat? More sneakers? We can never again take seriously anything these comedians complain about unless it's
can't take seriously anything that David Cross says.
Would go visit this like old southern racist guy on his porch in, you know, Georgia or wherever. And it was basically, he would take, you know, their lyrics and he's like, oh, niggas ain't shit, but da-da-da, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then they would all sit there and listen and write it down, and then they go.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
that's
it was
a great sketch.
It was a good idea.
You gonna bleep that N-word or what?
No, because it's the A, it's the AH.
Oh god, dude. My thoughts exactly. David Cross's thoughts on this. I don't know about all that. Here's Stavi endorsing Mamdani.
Mamdani, the next mayor of New York City. He is running a campaign that's for the people, make things affordable, free buses, freeze rent. Let's make, if you're a working class person, you can actually live in this incredible city that you helped make great. He's not, here's some other things he's got going for him. Not backed by billionaires, not a disgraced sex pest. Give us some bullet points.
As the next mayor of this city, I'm going to make the most expensive city in the United States affordable for New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs. Savi was saying, freezing the rent for rent-stabilized tenants.
His aides were right when they said he does too much with his hands. Like, yeah, try to keep your hands in your pockets as much as possible. Let your words do the talking. You know what I mean?
The slowest buses in the country, fast and free, deliver universal childcare. We can only do this, though, if you come out and vote. Election day is on June 24th.
Too much chopping.
At 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's our last opportunity to send Andrew Cuomo back to the suburbs.
Let's get him out of here, baby. Let's get this man. This is the next mayor.
Come on.
Vote.
Like, Mamdani's awkwardness is so contagious, it's making Stavi a little bit awkward. I don't know, man. He's gonna be the next mayor. It's an ace in the hole for him.
Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electric.
Yeah, while Kyle's still talking about Bill Burr, Ebb and Flow has already moved on to Theo Von blaming Charlie Kirk and DHS for his special bomb. What is DHS? Oh, the Department of Homeland Security? Really? I mean, I feel like I knew that, but I was not expecting that, you know?
Electricity, electricity, electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
Alright, so Theo Von, a couple people have been talking about recently that at a taping of a special that people had attended, he apparently bombed completely and like didn't remember his own material, and the whole thing kind of flubbed. This was something that a couple people posted about on the internet, and there was a lot of speculation about it. Theo Von has obviously become a hot topic within comedy because of his sort of association with the Trump administration, willingness to help them during the campaign, his kind of willingness to play the useful idiot when it comes to politics. And so for him to have this kind of public failure at the special taping, it kind of confirmed a lot of people's thoughts that, you know, this is like the hack world of comedians. And there may be more to it than that. What I mostly find interesting about this is that Theo Von kind of tied in a couple of the political situations happening. There was also another incident where DHS used a video of Theo Von in one of their like Nazi propaganda videos about deporting any and everyone that they can. And Theo Von was upset that they used the video. I'll play that for you real quick right now.
Heard you got deported, dude. Bye.
It's the Pokemon theme song in the background.
They simply stopped coming. They're not coming anymore. We're getting a lot of credit, but they're not coming anymore.
That was the video that originally Theo Von had recorded just the part of him speaking, and then they edited it. This is like a popular meme format. I know it's bizarre looking, but it's meant to be the kind of juxtaposition between the peaceful music and something kind of intense that's being said. So, you know, they're just memeing. They've been doing this propaganda effort since Trump came into
maybe it's different music,
using sort of lighthearted memes in a very dark way, a knowingly dark way. So Theo Von said he doesn't want anything to do with that, and a lot of people obviously pointed out the hypocrisy of this, because Theo Von not only supported Trump and his administration and J.D. Vance coming on his podcast, but also has been pretty open about his support of Trump's immigration policy. And as he said in response to DHS using his video, he says, "My views are more nuanced than this video allows." So, having said all that, let's listen to what Theo Von said. He came out and addressed the fact that he bombed this special, and he ties it in with other news stories that are going on in kind of an interesting way. So, let's listen to what he had to say about it.
So I had a comedy special that we were taping. We were taping it last week, and about a month before I started, I quit taking some antidepressants I was taking. You know, I just kind of self-weaned myself off. And the reason why was because I wanted, like during the comedy show, I wanted to have a little bit more emotion during it. So I'm getting a ton of hateful stuff. And I'm trying to remember everything. I'm trying to kind of remember everything right now. And,
dude. You know, depression also affects memory. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to think about anything else. And from experience, coming off of antidepressants is like, you experience some of the symptoms of depression more intensely than you sometimes normally would otherwise. Just going against a doctor's advice, likely, and that can't be good.
But this video goes everywhere, and I'm getting like a lot of like, dude, what the fuck? Just all kind of shit, right? Like my phone just blowing. I'm like, what the hell? It's just like the last thing I needed, right? There's a week left to this special, and this happens. You know, this thing comes out. And my father immigrated here from Nicaragua, right? Like one of my prized possessions is I have his immigration papers when he came here. And I have him in a frame, and him and his siblings when they came here. And so I have tons of thoughts about it, but this was just fucked up, right? It was fucked up. And it was everywhere. It was like on all platforms and stuff. So that had me really kind of paranoid. You know, that had me start to get kind of paranoid and, you know, like closing, like, you know, I had the curtains in my house kind of closed. I was just like, you know, you're paranoid. I woke up the next morning. Sorry, I need some water. I woke up the next morning to a text from a high government official saying, hey, if you need some extra security in your neighborhood or some extra police cars on patrol, let me know. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Extra security. I don't have any, like, I don't even know the code to my Ring camera. Like, I don't even know how to log in. So it's like, and like, what, you're just going to put police cars in my neighborhood? What are my neighbors going to think now? They're fearful. Like, it just like, I don't know, man. That like really kind of shook me. It really kind of shook me. So there's just like all of that's happening. And then we get to just the job, right? Like, which is performing, speaking in front of strangers. Like, you had just seen this thing with Charlie Kirk, right? It's like we all watched somebody get lit up. We all watched somebody get murdered casually on our phones, right? Like, so I think I started to feel kind of mildly manic. I think it was just being off the medication. I think, and it wasn't insane. It was just little things. Like, the second I got on stage, the first show, I couldn't feel any moisture in my mouth. And I started to feel like, you ever remember that feeling if you were in high school and you got high and then you were standing there talking to your friends and you were just too high and you were just literally standing there just trying to pretending to be yourself a little bit? So I had a little bit of that going on. And it started off choppy. The first show, it started off kind of choppy. We were doing like a new intro with Joey Diaz at the last minute, and he was pretty goomed up. He's Coco, and it was a blessing that he was there, but we hadn't ran through it, and so it just like a lot of like things at the last minute. But yeah, I'm on stage, and the second half of the first show went good. And there were some beats that I got that had like an emotional piece to them that I wanted, and that felt exciting. But the whole show, it was there were parts where I just couldn't remember the next thing. I couldn't remember like my next sequence. Like, I was having trouble just keeping track of stuff. And that's when I really was like, oh man, I'm just off tonight. And then we did the second show, and the second show started out fire. First 22 minutes, we're cooking. And then I couldn't remember stuff. And we didn't put a teleprompter. We've done it for other specials. We didn't do it. And that was a bad choice. I don't know if I probably made the choice for sure. I don't remember. But so I had to ask for help. I was like having to ask off stage because I wanted to get everything in sequence. And I think I got stuck on this like sequence thing, and it was just hard, man. It just, I didn't feel like myself.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say, and I don't want to be a dick about this, Theo Von is, I believe, sober and has struggled with substance abuse in the past. And I will say that there are some signs of drug use in what he's saying here in this story. And I'm not saying I know it's that. It also does align what he's saying with so-called manic behavior. But a lot of what he's saying to me sounds like, there's a potential missing piece that could be the explanation for said manic, overexcited, and foggy behavior. He says Joey Diaz is there and he's gooned up, whatever that means. I don't know. And Joey Diaz also has a history with that stuff. And look, as far as I know, both these guys are sober. I hope that's still the case. If it's not, I wish them the best. I'm not trying to get into anybody's personal business, but it does seem a little bit of a stretch the way he's tying these two more political stories into this. He said the thing about Charlie Kirk, which was a few weeks ago at this point, and then even the thing he said about DHS was like a week before the special taping, he said. And so there's the other element of that where people from the government were reaching out to him about extra security, and he like hired some extra security and just weird shit like that. I can see how that would put a person on edge, but it does seem kind of pointed, especially the way he's pulling the Charlie Kirk story into this. And maybe because it's a special taping, so it felt like a big deal. Look, I get it. Anybody who does any kind of speech, especially political speech, even a little bit. But I think that appealing to those different political issues is kind of a way to divert attention almost. But that being said, I mean, he could be being honest about what he was experiencing at the time. And more so, what I'm interested in getting into here is what he says about immigration and about the surveillance state. So he says that he believes that we are entering a surveillance state and that a lot of what the government is doing is about bookkeeping. and they don't want to have people in the country that are not on the books because they want to be able to surveil everything up and down. So I would say that that's a decent observation. And I want to dig into that a little bit more, because you do see some of these guys dimly wanting to break from Trump on some things. And he talks about how his father came here and he had his father's immigration papers. There's never any acknowledgement from these guys that the immigration system is drastically understaffed. And so people do come here the right way and then aren't able to get into the system for a long time because of the lack of immigration judges. And so that causes them to be undocumented in the country. And so that's what's causing a lot of people to be arrested viciously, brutally, and deported. And you are seeing some people on the right starting to want to distance themselves from that a little bit. To me, this is different from how Theo Von was talking about these issues previously, before they started to see in practice what it looks like to carry out some of these things that the Trump administration was openly saying they were going to do when it was just a campaign. They were saying they were going to do this type of thing. And so now people are seeing videos of it, and Theo Von even sees, his own face being used as sort of an instrument of propaganda for this. And what I would say to Theo Von is that if it's true that Peter Thiel, Palantir, and others are trying to create a surveillance state, right? You're recognizing that immigration and going after so-called illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants, in this way is a part of that surveillance state. And it's not just a matter of getting people out who aren't on the books. What it's about is creating a system, a systematized way to arrest, disappear, deport, or maybe do other things to people that the state decides shouldn't be here. And so these corporations that are getting the deals, corporations like Palantir, that are getting the deals to build these surveillance systems, the companies that are getting deals to build private facilities, this is all a necessary feature of an administration whose policy hinges upon allowing corporations like that to balloon completely out of size. A lot of this authoritarian type stuff that we're getting from the Trump administration is stuff that has been fear-mongered about for a long time, is it not? People said George Bush was going to do martial law. People said the same thing about Obama. Obama's creating a surveillance state. He's going to do martial law. And I will admit that both the Bush and Obama administration helped pave the way for what we now know as the surveillance state. But what we are seeing consolidate rapidly under Donald Trump is a corporatized version of this surveillance state. You could also call it a neoliberal version of this surveillance state, because the job of the government is being outsourced to private corporations, which means they have even less oversight than the government has when it does things like spy on you. And so understand that the trick of the Trump administration is to use the idea of illegal immigrants as a grounds to create this surveillance infrastructure and to create the police force that can arrest people violently at will, without identifying themselves, without showing their faces, without any due process, without presenting warrants like they just did in Chicago. They rappelled down from helicopters and pulled everybody in this apartment building out. Every single person. And so who knows what type of information infrastructure went into even targeting that building. But it obviously wasn't enough that they could do so in a way that prevents them from pulling citizens out of their house, in some cases naked children, and throwing them into trucks for hours at a time. So this infrastructure that is being allowed to operate in cities where they are not welcome has been created under the pretense that these criminals in this country are enough of a problem for you that they have to be removed by any means necessary. Meanwhile, most of the people that are being detained by Trump are not criminals at all. They're just undocumented. Because like I said, when you're here in the system, it can take months to years to even get into a courtroom so that you can begin the process of becoming a citizen. And a lot of those people are the ones being rounded up by this surveillance police state that has been created explicitly and rapidly, not by George Bush and not by Barack Obama, but by Donald Trump. And all of this was rather explicit in the campaign promises and the proposals of Donald Trump, as well as the people around him and the things that they were saying loudly. So when Donald Trump and his associates, J.D. Vance, go on these different podcasts and they talk about immigration, even Elon Musk goes and talks about how immigrants are being bussed into Pennsylvania and swing states to vote for Democrats. All of that was a lie. And the reason they had to lie about that is so that they could get you to turn over your rights to this idea of an invasion of immigrants. And that's the basis on which they've turned you over. Whether it be Theo Von and his image appearing on this video that he didn't give permission to do so, or anybody who's in his audience who's listening to this who may have found themselves voting for or supporting Trump, all of you have been turned over to a guy like Peter Thiel, who wants to police what you have to say about Israel. He wants to police what you have to say about ICE. He wants to police what you have to say about Donald Trump, about Jeffrey Epstein. That was the goal of the Trump administration this entire time. And the problem with Theo Von, and the reason he's probably feeling a lot of anxiety right now surrounding all of these issues, is that he completely failed to assess the cultural reality and political reality of Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. And now it's here. And we all have to deal with it. And people like Theo Von and Joe Rogan have to live in a country that is ruled by people that they helped empower. And they know they did it. And they're going to try to dance around it and pretend that they didn't, and pretend that, oh, well, I never took a firm stance. I just wanted to have interesting conversations, but they know they helped. And that's starting to instill a lot of anxiety in them. And so just to follow up on something I mentioned earlier, this raid that happened in Chicago by ICE, they rappelled down into an apartment building and essentially kicked down doors, presented no warrants, dragged people out of their houses. Everybody in this apartment building was arrested. And they did this on the basis that this was Tren de Aragua. So let me play this quick news clip from on the ground where there is active protests in Broadview, where there is a facility that is hosting these ICE agents. Kirsty Noem was there earlier today. She did some kind of photo shoot or something on the roof. They had a production crew up there, and there's been active protests around this building, as there should be, because Chicago is becoming one of the main grounds of resistance against these ICE agents, because this is where they're ramping up these raids. They're doing raids all over, but they can only isolate their resources in certain concentrated ways at certain times, and there's only so much resistance to that they can put up with. So let me play a clip of what's going on there just to give some context of what this raid was like, and then I'll wrap this up.
So, Mayor, let me ask you about the ICE agents that raided this apartment building in Chicago overnight. What more do you know? What can you tell us?
Well, we do know that 37 people were arrested in that overnight raid. That was in a South Side neighborhood here in Chicago. Federal officials tell us that those arrests had to do with a gang, Tren de Aragua members specifically. But we heard from many residents who were there when all this happened overnight, about 3 o'clock in the morning, that those federal agents just took in everyone from those buildings in that apartment, and then they kind of just asked questions later and released people as needed. So that certainly caught a lot of people off guard, and really that's the message of these protesters here right now. Everyone is aware of these federal operations happening in the Chicagoland area, but they just want more answers. We know elected officials here nearby want to get into this ICE facility. They want to get more transparency on those operations and raids that we have seen in the last few days happening in neighborhoods all across the Chicagoland area. But to this point, there just hasn't been that, and that's why these protesters remain out here today, specifically asking guards for more transparency in this entire operation, Kara.
All right, so like I said, they're doing this because they're starting to create an infrastructure through which this can be done to anybody. Because if they can say, this is Tren de Aragua, that's why we did this. They didn't say that till after this happened. So this is a sneak attack on American citizens in an American city, Democrat-run city on American soil. And they're essentially allowed to pull these people out of their house, and you could argue sexually abuse their children, throw them into trucks where they're forced to stand there waiting for hours, and then just say, well, we did it because we were arresting Tren de Aragua. No proof of that has been produced, and there seems to be no burden of proof on these people at all. What that means is that that could happen to you for any reason. If all Donald Trump has to say is that this is a Venezuelan gang, so we're going to blow up this boat in the middle of the ocean, or we're going to blow up this building on American soil, and doesn't have to produce any proof, that means that could happen to you for any reason. And if that worries you, and if you don't like the idea of Palantir building up its surveillance state, a privately owned surveillance state, if you don't like the idea of ICE being able to kick in the door of any house that they want to because they say there are illegal immigrants there, then now is the time that you can apply some pressure to your elected representative because of the government shutdown. So they're negotiating a budget bill right now, in large part that funds ICE and the building of the facilities that immigrants and anybody else that they arrest is going to be taken to and potentially deported from, but also in many cases probably forced to work at. And all of that is going to be appropriated to the government once this bill gets passed, if it gets passed. Right now, what the shutdown is happening over is healthcare. There are some provisions that Republicans are cutting out of healthcare that will also probably affect you. But no one in government is talking about ICE. None of our elected representatives are talking about not funding ICE. And as we're seeing these insane raids happen, and it's becoming more clear to people how this is affecting their own rights, even though it should concern them that they're doing this to anybody, now is the time that you can contact your representative and try to get them to talk about this, especially in relation to this budget bill. Because the longer this shutdown goes on, the more this problem of ICE or Palantir, funding for Palantir is in this bill. Funding for the surveillance capability of Palantir and other contractors like it is in this bill. So if you have a problem with that and you feel like it's usually useless to contact your elected representative, now is the time to do it. Because there are conversations of leverage being had within the government, and one of the things they're not talking about is the rights that are being violated on behalf of citizens everywhere. And so now is the time to contact your senator, especially if you are represented by a Republican. But even if you're represented by a Democrat, now is the moment when Democrats have some leverage. So let's get them talking about this. If you really care about this, Theo Von, then let's get on it.
Pressure getting pressed, do you feel it now? What even happens next, I don't really know. Voice carries less, can you hear me now? Soon as I get blessed, time's running out. Pressure getting pressed. Pressure getting pressed. Feel the pressure getting pressed. Yeah. Pressure, do you feel it now? I'm just saying this.
I was AFK longer than I anticipated. What is this?
Back with another video. So it looked like some footage has surfaced of Kathy Engelberg counting Caitlin Clark pockets, and it's looking real spooky about her actually making those comments about Caitlin. Guys, for this one here, we got to go all the way up to New York. Let's get it. Let's go. Thing that was popping yesterday was Commissioner Kathy Engelberg. Many fans was demanding that Nafisa Collier come up with some type of footage, some type of something showing that she actually made those comments. Now, no footage of her talking to Nafisa Collier has surfaced, but what is surfacing is comments she made about Caitlin Clark all last year, pretty much her coming into the league with a bag already. Now, we know Caitlin Clark was a multimillionaire in college. Caitlin Clark made more money in college than a lot of these WNBA teams was making in a year, bro. Her and Angel Reese. People can say what they want about Angel, but she had a bag too. One thing about this, the whole NIL landscape of thing is granting these college players more money. And a lot of times, a lot of these players stay in college relatively than coming to the W because they make more money while being in college. Now, that's why these CBA negotiations is so important, because it's finally time for these ladies to get at least the type of money they're making in college, bro. But make no excuses about it. Don't look like Kathy ready to in that situation either, which that's a whole nother topic. We ain't even finna get into that. But something that I do want to talk about is the comments that she made about Caitlin Clark in new footage. Now, she can't deny she didn't make these damn comments, because one thing about the internet, it's undefeated. And I don't know why Kathy stood up her and say that she didn't make any comments about Caitlin Clark with her money. When, we got a hell of a footage of her making strong remarks about Caitlin Clark pocket. Definitely pocket watching. Now, Kathy, what the conversation that she had with Nafisa Collier was a pocket watching conversation. Now, we seen the press conference yesterday. John played some of that. She made it seem like she wasn't pocket watching. Watch this. See,
What
I
is
love
pocket
y'all,
watching?
because y'all gonna get right down to business. We ain't playing no games.
Oh, I get it.
Y'all
Like
ain't playing no
being
games, finding
envious
this stuff on the
of
internet.
money.
I ain't lying. Shout out to everybody on Twitter, bro, because the internet is undefeated. Now, Kathy looking real goofy right now because, the homeboy Mike said that this is what I was talking about. What the F are you so worried about Caitlin Clark endorsement money for? Now, Correlation was the one who originally found this. Shout out to Correlation. Let's listen.
Well, let me clarify first, because it's proxy season, right? No CEO, do you just put the base pay in there? You put their bonus, you put their stock options, you put everything. Caitlin has the ability to make up to $500,000 just in WNBA wages this year. So, of course, they're just looking at a base which is collectively bargained. And actually, it's low because she's the number one pick. She'll make a little more than that. But she also has millions and millions of dollars of endorsements.
Pocket watching. Why you counting her endorsements? What do her endorsements got to do with her WNBA salary? That right there shows to look a little spooky for you, Kathy.
She's actually, because she declared to become pro, her endorsements are higher in dollar value. She has a global platform now, not just a U.S. platform. So she's going to do just fine, as will the top players in the league, as every league does. Also, there's comparisons to the men. Those men's leagues are 75 to 120 years old. We're tipping off our 28th season. I would say if you looked at them 28 seasons in, we're further ahead. But I realize we still have a lot of work to do. And it's all about the ecosystem. Well, let me...
Kathy. So you, hold on, wait a minute, because I think it might be a little more. It might be a little more footage. This Kathy saying that she didn't say those things. Let me blow this one up, because I can blow this one up. Let's see.
You've continued to express that you're disheartened by the characterization of your conversation with Nafisa Collier. Just again, seeking clarity. Did you in fact say that Caitlin Clark should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court, because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything? And do you actually feel that way, that without this platform, players like Caitlin Clark wouldn't be making what they do off the court?
Yeah, obviously I did not make those comments. Caitlin has been a transformational player in this league. She's
now, it's kind of hard to believe you, Kathy, after you just did a year ago before. Oh, Caitlin's coming to the league with $1 million endorsements. Caitlin's coming to the league with this and that. You made those comments publicly, Kathy. Who knows what you said privately? Told y'all yesterday. I'm convinced she said it, bro.
She's been a great representative of the game. She's brought in tens of millions of new fans to the game. Proud of what she's put on the court. Unfortunately, the injuries held her back from a full season this year. But again, I'm not going to get into every counterpoint. It's not productive here. We're here to celebrate the WNBA finals. I think what Indiana just did was amazing with all the injuries they had and everything they faced this year, and bringing that to a Game 5 in overtime. But yeah, as I said, there's a lot of inaccuracies reported out there. And I certainly did not say that.
But something you did say, Kathy, was this right here. Because I got to play this again.
It's proxy season, right? Well, let me clarify first, because it's proxy season, right? No CEO, do you just put the base pay in there? You put their bonus, you put their stock options, you put everything. Caitlin has the ability to make up to $500,000 just in WNBA wages this year. So, of course, they're just looking at a base which is collectively bargained. And actually, it's low because she's the number one pick. She'll make a little more than that. But she also has millions and millions of dollars of endorsements. She's actually, because she declared to become pro, her endorsements are higher in dollar value. She has a global platform now, not just a U.S. platform. So she's going to do just fine, as will the top players in the league, as every league does. Also, there's comparisons to the men. Those men's leagues.
Now, Kathy did say that millions of dollars in endorsement. You was counting Caitlin Clark pockets, and now you're looking real silly, Kathy. Because who knows, like I stated, what Kathy said privately about Caitlin Clark. At the end of the day, to me, do I believe Kathy said those things to Nafisa Collier? Yes, I believe she did. I believe she hella said those things, and she said a little more than that. That's my belief, and I believe Nafisa Collier is not the only one that knows she said that. Who's all on that console? I think Breanna Stewart know too. I think other members of the NBA, WNBA know Kathy said it too. Will other players come forward and we hear their side of the story is the question. But something about this that is spooky is, will we hear audio, not AI, some real audio of Kathy saying those set things about Caitlin? Because I said it once and I'll say it again. In the age of the WNBA, in the age of technology, ain't no telling what's going to come out the woodwork. Just like we had that little clip from NBC, there's probably more of Kathy counting Caitlin Clark pockets as a commissioner. This look a little spooky. Could you imagine Adam Silver counting Steph Curry pockets, counting LeBron pockets, endorsements? Let me know. Roger Goodell counting players' endorsement money.
The deal with people like Regina Spektor, who openly defend. I mean, she's on the like very bad level. They're collaborators who still perform in Israel,
100%.
like Radiohead, Nick Cave.
Yeah, Nick Cave.
Right? And then there are people who like
Nick
openly
Cave,
defend
too?
Israel. And then
Damn.
there's DJ Khaled, who himself is Palestinian and has said nothing about it. What are your thoughts on these people? I actually put out a tweet, Roger, in anticipation of this conversation, and I asked for like the worst musicians on this issue.
Right.
And the people told me, Radiohead, Streisand, DJ Khaled, Regina Spektor,
Streisand.
Bob Dylan, Steve Earle. Unfortunately, I didn't know
Bob
that.
Dylan's a Zionist
Steve
too?
Wilson,
Wow.
Stephen Wilson, Radiohead, David Draymond, Matisyahu, obviously, Anton Newcomey, Brian Jonestown Massacre,
Yeah.
U2, Bruno Mars, Elton John, Pharrell Williams, Jack Black,
Well,
Lady
yeah.
Gaga, David
Yeah.
Gilmour, Morrissey,
Yeah.
Taylor Swift. What? I don't believe that.
Yeah. Raging Zionists, sort of the whole bloody lot of them.
Gene Simmons of KISS, who went to my socialist, secular, Jewish, communist summer camp, or worked there.
Gene Simmons. Oh my goodness.
And then there's someone named Disturbed. There's someone named
Yeah,
David Draymond.
Oh, that dude.
I don't know this band. Do you guys know this band? It's called Disturbed.
He literally wrote genocidal messages on the sides of IDF bombs, performs for the IDF troops. Huge Zionist.
And you know what he did? He's one of these evil people who did one of those like signings of you know how sometimes they'll sign missiles?
Yeah.
Okay, so look at this.
I'm looking.
Disturbed frontman David Draymond is a rabid Zionist who there you see him wearing a dog tag. Who signed a missile? Disgusting. Who
That
signed
is disgusting.
bombs to be dropped on Gaza?
Yeah, that is completely disgusting. And what's their excuse? Have you ever spoken to one of these people? Because I never have.
No.
I can't.
Regina Spektor is just really dumb. I almost feel bad for her. And Bono, what? Okay, here's the thing with Bono. You two used to be so good on like Central America. They were
What do you
very
mean
good
on
Central
America?
They were good about like the U.S. and the CIA torturing the people. I mean, when I say they were good on it, they exposed it and they lent their song to a very good episode of 21 Jump Street, which had a very good episode about Doug Pinhole trying to marry his girlfriend, and then she was deported and then killed.
Yeah.
Bono was good on that stuff. And then what happened?
I don't know. I'm still looking for this thing.
What are you looking for? Because
I'm looking for the road to Damascus.
Oh, well, that's going to take a while. Okay.
No, it's not.
Well, we have the open letter to Radiohead. We have Roger Water and
No, it's
Sultan
not.
York over Stanton.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, well, yeah. Could you put it up so I can read it?
Yeah.
So me and this Aussie bloke are
This man is offensively British.
walking down the road on our way to a gig. Just as we get there, we see these heavily armed soldiers on the other side of the road, knocking this Arab bloke to the ground, kneeling on him, kicking him in the head and beating him with their rifle butts. I cross over to the other side and remonstrate with the soldiers. The soldiers told me to fuck off or they'll arrest me. Are you all right? I asked the bloke, daft question. Can I help? Yes, he says. You're musicians. Yes, I reply. They've stolen our land, he says. We are resisting. There is a cultural boycott. Please don't do a gig here. As he's dragged away towards the paddy wagon, he tosses a small round metal badge in my direction. I return to the other side of the road where the Aussie bloke has been watching the events unfold. Did you see that? I say. Yeah, come on, we've got a gig to do, mate. No, I say. There is a cultural boycott. That Arab bloke is a victim. The Israeli soldiers are perpetrators. We have a moral duty to stand with the victim. Don't you try to bully me, you shameful, cowardly bastard, says the Aussie bloke, and he pushes past me into the gig. I only say that because he accused me of being cowardly and shameful, right? When he did an interview with Rolling Stone. Don't you try to bully me, you shameful, cowardly bastard, says the Aussie bloke. And he pushes past me into the gig. I reach down into the dust, retrieve the BDS badge, and pin it to my lapel. Fuck you, Nick fucking Cave, you fucking prick. And that's the end of the little story. Poor Nick, you know. Fancy being that deluded.
Well, yeah, and you know what else is like, I don't give Jews a pass at this, but I don't understand unless you're a Christian Zionist or a Jewish Zionist, and he may be Christian, but he's not particularly religious. Like, I just don't understand it. Like, if you're an American Jew, chances are you've been brainwashed. And if you're a Christian Zionist, you're just crazy. Like, kind of more generally. But I don't get when people like a Nick Cave are just pro-Israel. They haven't they haven't been indoctrinated all their lives. So I just don't understand it.
They like to think, let me explain it.
Yeah, explain it.
They like to think that music transcends politics and the law and everything else. It's a floaty thing that.
Yeah, music transcends politics and social conventions and everything. So isn't that convenient for when you would just want to pick up tour money wherever you can get it?
Floats around ethereally in the atmosphere, and it crosses all
and borders
and all of that. So it doesn't matter if you're Joseph Goebbels or fucking Netanyahu. That's okay because it has nothing to do with me. Yes, it does, and I'll tell you who knows that it does: the people of Palestine, Nick Cave. That is why.
Or maybe their music never stood for anything in the first place, which is why maybe you shouldn't be a fan of them.
They start, and South Africa, and anywhere else where they start a boycott movement or a divestment movement or a sanctions movement because they want human rights, and it's the only way that they can get it. And when they start BDS, like my friend Omar Barghouti and his mates did in 2005, they're doing it because they are in desperate need of human rights. And you and I, Nick, however much you think your music's important, and however much you care about me infringing on your rights of free movement and speech and things, when I tell you to respect the picket line and not go there, you need to sit back at some point and go, hang on a minute, this is what about the scales of justice? What is the right thing to do? That's one thing I learned from my mother, Nick, right? when I was little, or a 13-year-old or something, I was wrestling with something, and my mum saw I was, and she looked at me and she said, "You're thinking about something." She said, "Listen, sit down, Roger." So I did. And she said, "As you grow up, there will be many things that you have to wrestle with in your life, and you have to think things through and whatever. When that happens to you, this is my advice. Read, read, read. Particularly if it's something political, read all the history, read everything that you can, and not just opinions that you agree with, but the other side of the conversation too. Read, 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 and then read some more." "Yeah, Mum, and then what do I do when I've done all?" "Well, when you finish doing all the reading, the next bit is easy." "Well, what is the next bit, Mum?" "You do the right thing." That's it, Nick. Just think about that. And in another life, if you're reincarnated, for fuck's sake, Nick, next time, do the right thing, sunshine. It's not hard. And particularly in a case like this, where
He says in a next life, because that's all the charity you can get. Because after 2 years of genocide, there's no excuse. There's only repentance, asking for forgiveness, and righting your wrongs. The monumental thing about genocide and being on the right side of history is that there's no do-overs. You can't say you were always against it when you weren't. And I mean, history won't be kind to those people, and there's nothing that can be done about it now. So maybe in the next life, you'll do the right thing. 'Cause that's the best you can hope for.
there's one group of people committing genocide on another, you have to stand with the victims. To stand by silent and indifferent is the greatest sin of all. Sorry.
What happened to Bono? How can you be Irish and not be outspoken for Palestine?
He's an idiot. Bono's a complete prick. He goes to, I nearly used the F-bomb then.
Okay, you can.
He goes to Davos, for fuck's sake.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, and he like did stuff with George W. Bush.
He just loves living. Yeah, he goes to George W. Bush's ranch and hangs out with his pal. Are you insane, Bono? I'll answer that, Bono. Yes, you fucking are, mate.
Right.
And it's not all right. It's terrible.
No, it's terrible, yeah.
But if you'll be in a band with a bloke who calls himself The Hedge, I mean, what can you expect?
The Hedge or The Edge?
I thought it was called The Hedge.
No, The Edge.
I know that. I know.
Oh, you're making a joke. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know what? Because I thought, Canadians put H's, French Canadians put H's where there is no H and cut off the H where there is. Yeah.
There
so,
you
okay.
go.
The Hedge. Okay. I get it. He's hedging his bets.
I don't know if he is or not. I don't know if he's even a betting man.
And Radiohead?
Oh, let's not go there, can we?
Right.
He's a timid little bloke, I think. Yeah. Probably. I think he's unpleasant company, but
wait,
Tom, I wrote him many letters, to
Did he ever respond?
Yeah, he did. And
Tom's a weird little guy.
Memoir. He did respond. He got very, very snarky, and he was trying to be fun. Do you know what he calls himself? Do you know what his email address is? You're going to love this.
Wait, don't. Okay, I don't want. Yeah.
What, you want to guess?
York Thomas, Head Radio.
You ready?
Yeah.
Winston Smith.
Whoa.
Yeah, whoa. For those of you who don't know out there in book reading or not book reading, he's the central character in 1984, George Orwell.
That is a little bit crazy.
So, yeah. So it shows pretensions of attachment to being anti-authoritarian.
Yeah, but he was very anti-communist, Orwell, which
Yes,
we
he
can
was.
kind of forgive her for here and there, but yeah.
Mm.
Gwyneth Paltrow was married to the guy from Coldplay, right? Not
Correct.
from, okay.
Chris, whatever his name
And how
is.
is he? Chris, what is his name? Is he okay on Israel? Chris Martin.
He's not okay enough. He sort of sails gently.
He's like both sides.
40, he's well out of gunfire from the flotilla. He's somewhere, but he might be waving at them from 1,000 miles away.
Right.
Okay? And now, of course, he's much more engaged than he would have been a year ago or whenever it was very uncomfortable. And not that I've got anything. Chris Martin, his name.
Chris Martin, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I was gonna tell him
he's probably, you know, he might well be a perfectly
I think he
decent
both
fellow.
sides is it a little bit, but I'll tell him what I have to say to Chris Martin is that he has to consciously uncouple from Israel because that's what he and Gwyneth Paltrow did. Yeah.
Did she decouple from Israel or not? Or
Oh, I'm
don't-
not
we
sure
don't?
actually. I'm not
Listen,
sure.
anyway, what, you know, who cares, frankly?
Yeah.
What we do care about is uniting for peace in the General Assembly next week, and
Yes.
whether or not we can all put our shoulders to that wheel and help make that happen, because it's hugely important. And if we don't do it now, we're going to have to do it later, because we cannot live in a world where the United States of America and the State of Israel are allowed to get away with murder, which
Literal
is
murder,
what
yeah.
they are doing at the moment.
Let me see how small I can make this window. RuneScape is wild. It's literally just using like a quarter of my screen.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israeli forces continue to encircle Gaza City, issuing final evacuation orders to remaining residents. Across Gaza, Israeli attacks have killed 22 Palestinians, including 16 in Gaza City, since dawn. A newborn baby died in Gaza City's Al-Helu hospital as infants were being evacuated to escape Israel's onslaught. Al Jazeera is reporting at least 7 people were killed in southern Gaza's Al-Mawasi area that Israel designated as a safe zone. It comes as Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, denounced the killing of its 14th staff member in Gaza, occupational therapist Omar Hayek. Meanwhile, UNICEF spokesperson James Elder recounted harrowing conditions at Al-Aqsa Hospital.
This is just absolutely out of control. I promised myself the first story.
Anytime they film rubble, it might not seem like much, but there are probably people under there.
In Gaza would be just some of the incredible volunteers and the joy they bring to kids, even in hospitals. And I'm here, and the first room I'm in, there are 4 children who've all been hit by quadcopters. 4 children, and then we're in a makeshift ICU, a makeshift intensive care, because there are so many children, and all 4 of these children have been hit by quadcopters. 2 minutes later in the ICU, sitting with this little girl Aya, who is 5 years old, and she died in front of us.
It comes as Hamas is reportedly demanding key revisions to President Trump's ceasefire deal. A Hamas source tells The Guardian the condition to disarm would be difficult for the group to accept. Far-right Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir taunted the global Samud flotilla activists taken into custody by Israel on Thursday. There were more than 400 of them, pointing at them and calling them terrorists. Reporters Without Borders said there were more than 20 foreign reporters on board the flotilla. Meanwhile, demonstrators took to the streets all over the world, from Karachi, Pakistan, to Barcelona, Spain, in response to Israel capturing more than 450 activists. Italian students occupied universities and Italian unions calling for a general strike for Friday, with more than 100 marches expected across Italy. Protesters also took to the streets of Athens, Greece.
We demand that all the participants who were there be freed now. We are here to shout again for freedom to Palestine, and we demand that our country stop any cooperation with the murderous state of Israel, which has been intensifying the genocide of the Palestinian people, with the support of the United States, NATO, and the European Union.
We'll get an update on the global Samud flotilla later in the broadcast. Here in New York, more than 1,000 rabbis, Jewish peace activists, and their allies led a protest Thursday demanding a permanent ceasefire in Gaza and an end to U.S. arms transfers to Israel. They gathered at Brooklyn Borough Hall for a mass public memorial service, the Yizkor service, on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year, known as the Day of Atonement. After the ceremony, nearly 60 people were arrested as they nonviolently blocked traffic to the Brooklyn Bridge. This is New York City Comptroller and ally of mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani, Brad Lander.
We must today take collective responsibility for what the Israeli government has been doing, is doing today on Yom Kippur, makes clear it is going to keep doing to Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank also. The bombs funded by our taxpayer dollars in the name of the Jewish state, but a desecration of Judaism.
President Trump has embraced the government shutdown as an unprecedented opportunity to punish his political opponents while slashing the federal workforce and cutting off funding to whole government agencies. On Thursday, Trump said Budget Chief Russell Vought will have the power to decide if cuts should be temporary or permanent. And he said he would continue to target projects and agencies favored by Democrats.
Well, there could be firings, and that's their fault. And it could also be other things. I mean, we could cut projects that they wanted, favorite projects, and they'd be permanently cut.
Democrats are demanding the reversal of cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act that will result in some 15 million people losing their health insurance coverage over the next decade. This is House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries.
This is day 2 of Donald Trump's shutdown, but it's day 256 of the chaos that the Trump presidency has unleashed on the American people. Republicans have shut the government down because they don't want to provide health care to working class Americans.
The Labor Department will
Hakeem Jeffries doing a Barack Obama impression is so insufferable, dude. He's like doing the cadence.
delay publication of its monthly jobs report that was scheduled for release today. It was expected to show a slowdown in hiring in September. Economist Erica Grosjean, who formerly led the Bureau of Labor Statistics, told the Washington Post, quote, "It's a bad time to be missing data. We're flying blind right now as the economy could be turning." The Trump administration is cutting nearly $8 billion in clean energy projects in all 16 states that voted for Kamala Harris, and where both senators voted against the GOP funding bill. According to the Natural Resources Defense Council, the cuts will impact battery plants, hydrogen technology projects, and upgrades to the electric grid. In California, a massive explosion tore through a Chevron oil refinery in the Los Angeles suburb of El Segundo Thursday evening, sparking a fire that burned through the night and could be seen miles away. The explosion occurred around 9:30 p.m., prompted shelter-in-place orders till 2 a.m. No injuries have been reported. This comes as the Trump administration has moved to shut down the U.S. Chemical Safety and Hazard Investigation Board, an independent federal agency tasked with uncovering the causes of industrial disasters. The Trump administration is asking 9 public and private universities to sign a deal to help promote conservative ideas on campus in exchange for federal funding. The administration is calling it a 10-point compact and promised, quote, substantial and meaningful federal grants if universities take action against academic departments that, quote, purposefully punish, belittle, and even spark violence against conservative ideas, unquote. The Trump administration is also demanding the universities ban the use of race or sex in hiring or admissions and cap foreign students to 15% of undergraduates. Walt Heinecke, a faculty member at University of Virginia, one of the universities targeted by the Trump administration, warned the memo threatens academic freedom.
It's a threat, and it's a threat that should be taken seriously and should be reacted to in a way in which I think all colleges and universities who this is meant to actually be applied later to all universities and colleges, not just to the 9 or 10 that have received the letter. So that means that we should all be thinking about how to resist this particular form of intrusion.
In Baltimore, a federal immigration judge has denied a bid for asylum by Maryland father Kilmar Abrego Garcia, though he has 30 days to appeal the ruling. The judge dismissed Abrego Garcia's argument that he faced imminent removal to Uganda, even though the Trump administration has repeatedly publicly threatened to send him to Uganda or Eswatini, countries he has no ties to. Abrego Garcia first made international headlines when he was wrongfully deported by the Trump administration to El Salvador, where he was held in the notorious Secat mega prison. An ICE official later admitted his deportation was an administrative error. He's since faced relentless attacks on his character by President Trump and top administration officials who've accused him of being a human smuggler and a member of the MS-13 gang, even though he's not been convicted of any crimes. A federal court in Georgia has denied an emergency request by the award-winning Spanish-language journalist Mario Guevara to remain in the United States, paving the way for his deportation to El Salvador today. According to the ACLU, Guevara was not allowed to say goodbye to his wife and 3 children. He's lived in the United States for some 20 years and has built a large following for his reporting on anti-ICE protests. He was jailed by ICE for more than 100 days, even though an immigration judge granted him bond. He was arrested in June while live streaming a No Kings demonstration, even though he clearly identified himself as a journalist. We'll have more on his case after headlines. President Trump is declaring the U.S. is in an armed conflict with drug cartels following recent strikes on boats in the Caribbean. That's according to a memo obtained by the Associated Press. The memo also states, quote, the United States has now reached a critical point where we must use force in self-defense and defense of others against the ongoing attacks by these designated terrorist organizations, unquote. It comes after the U.S. attacked 3 boats in the Caribbean last month, reportedly killing 17 people. Meanwhile, Venezuela's defense minister, Vladimir Padrino, blasted the U.S. Thursday after detecting 5 F-35 fighter jets close to the Venezuelan coast.
The presence of these aircraft flying near our area of influence nearby the Caribbean Sea and off the Venezuelan coast is a vulgarity and a threat to national security. It is a serious threat, so I denounce before the world the military harassment and the military threat from the United States government against the people of Venezuela who only want peace, work, and happiness.
The United Nations is calling for urgent action to prevent large-scale, ethnically driven atrocities in El Fasher, the besieged capital of Sudan's North Darfur state. On Thursday, the UN's top human rights official warned at least 91 civilians were killed in El Fasher last month as the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, carried out artillery shelling, drone strikes, and ground incursions. The UN also warned the RSF against starving civilians in El Fasher as a method of warfare amidst credible reports of civilians being tortured and killed by RSF fighters for bringing food and essential supplies into the city. British police have identified the suspect who drove a car at members of the public outside a Manchester synagogue on Thursday before attacking people with a knife. 35-year-old Jihad al-Shami was a British citizen of Syrian descent. He was shot dead by firearms officers just minutes after the rampage began. Manchester police report one of the 2 victims killed in the attack was shot dead by police, and one of the 3 people hospitalized was struck by a police bullet. The Church of England's announced Sarah Mullally as the first female Archbishop of Canterbury. The 63-year-old former nurse served as the Bishop of London and is the 4th woman to be ordained in the Church's history. The Anglican Church has more than 85 million members across 165 countries. And the FDA has approved a new generic version of the abortion pill mifepristone. 3 American companies are now allowed to manufacture the drug. Nearly 2/3 of abortions in the U.S. are conducted by medication. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more...
It's October 4th, 2025, and this is your report on the Gaza war. And it's a bold prediction on my part, but I'm going to continue to start this video with no end in sight. Obviously, you're here to find out about the peace plan that Trump put on the table, a 21-point proposal. And I had a plan. Events are moving very quickly. I'll probably be back tomorrow, just so you know, with a surprise guest, not the usual surprise guest, but also fairly predictable surprise guest. If you know, you'll see tomorrow. Anyway, so I'll be back tomorrow because things are moving so fast. But I'm going to talk about the military situation as always, and then we will get into the plan, the counter proposal by Hamas, and where things are at now, and where I think things are going to go in the next day or so. Which I'm going to go ahead and say nowhere is where things are going to go in the next day or so. But let me develop that point. So I want to start on the flotilla, the Samud flotilla. As you may have heard, that Greta Thunberg is currently in Israeli custody along with these hundreds of others. Some have returned to Britain, I believe, or on the way back to Britain and have been released. But for the most part, they're still in custody. Their boats have been impounded. They've been blindfolded and tortured and abused, including Greta. They made a big show of abusing Greta, apparently, which they said they were going to do, and now they've done. And they're trying to deter them. The Ben-Gvir himself apparently went to try to intimidate them, and they chanted "Free Palestine" in his face, which I think is amazing. But like the thing I noted was that one ship almost made it through, and so with about 50 ships, they were able to make it almost through. And I just have always thought that this was that these flotillas there was no way that these could end except with being intercepted by the Israelis. But it seems like if they have a big enough number of boats, they probably can get some of them through the Israeli naval blockade. I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll find out depending on what they're able to do. Doesn't seem to be any let up. I think they're going to try to keep doing this. I don't know the flotilla people very well, and I know it's a tremendous amount of resources and money and people that I know people want to go, and they're going to keep trying to go. So you probably also know that they were bravely escorted by the navies of Italy and Spain and Turkish drones, all of which bravely sailed away at the most important moment. So that's amazing. The cowardice of the armies and navies of the world, as the unarmed people of the world try to sail on right into danger. So it's a time, and we live this time that we live in is really something. So okay, let me go a little bit chronologically in terms of the last time I saw you guys, and just the military events have been proceeding it's been the Gaza front has been very active. The Battle of Gaza City has been very active. So September 29th. Feels like a long time ago now, doesn't it? Just Monday. It's Saturday. I'm recording this on Saturday, but on Monday, there was field reports of Qassam, the armed wing of Hamas, detonating one of Israel's big bombs, a GBU missile prepared in advance on military vehicles in Gaza City. There was an explosive ground charge in Gaza City by Qassam against a Merkava tank, confirmed destruction. There was footage of a raid of a gathering of Israeli soldiers at the Rosary Sisters School in Tel El Hawa. I think John mentioned this one on the EI live stream, but the Israelis set up in a girls' school. Of course they did, and there was a raid gathering of them there. The resistance attacked them there. Their mortar operations rocketing Ashdod, which is one of the Israeli settlements just outside of Gaza, so the resistance still has the ability to launch rockets from Gaza to Israel. There was a Sarai al-Quds, the armed wing of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, detonated a rigged house in Al Nasser in Gaza City. They mentioned that a small drone participated and documented the moment enemy forces entered and the house exploded. So all of this on September 29th. On October 1st, I have reports. I'm sure the battle continued on the 30th, but my field reports seem to skip a day. So October 1st, there's a Thaqib device, one of those devices, mine, it's a little heavy to carry, destroyed a military vehicle in Zahra at Gaza City. I believe Zahra is in Gaza City. Sniping operation by Sarai al-Quds, a battle with the Israelis on Al Jalal Street in Gaza City, and then also operations in the West Bank, a pre-prepared explosive device against a military vehicle with confirmed casualties, a gun battle with invaders. So just very up-tempo in terms of resistance operations on October 1st. That's Tuesday. Now we're on Wednesday. Wednesday or Thursday? No, we're already on Thursday, sorry. And Thursday is the day that Abdel Malik al-Houthi makes his speech, and his speech had hit many of the normal notes that he hits, which is berating the Arab and Muslim world for their complicity and their failure to do anything effective. And then some notes that he makes quantitatively about Yemen's participation. He said that this week, so between the last time he spoke, Yemen's support operations included 18 launches, rockets, and drones, some reaching into the depth of occupied Palestine, naval actions to enforce the ban on navigation to Israel, and strikes on vessels violating that ban. Yemeni maritime actions have targeted 228 ships to date and helped disrupt the port of al-Rashrash, inflicting serious economic impact on Israel. They also have vowed that they're not going to exempt American shipping and the Navy in the Red Sea anymore. So we may see fighting again between the American Navy and the Yemenis in the near future. again, I don't believe they announce these things just casually. So if they announce that, it's usually, especially when it's Yemen, when they announce something, what they announce invariably happens shortly afterwards. So on October 3rd, Hamas said they were deliberating on the Trump proposal. I'm going to talk about the Trump proposal, but I wanted to say this. That was yesterday. Can you imagine? Yesterday, my time. So they've managed to give the reply already, but they responded to the Trump proposal. They said, we're discussing the plan seriously. We will not take an all or nothing mentality. And it's interesting because if any of you have studied this, if you've gone to if any of my business school, any of you are from business school, if you go to business school and you take negotiation, you'll probably read a book from the Harvard Negotiation Project. There's the popular book is called Getting to Yes. And in Getting to Yes, there's this framework called principal bargaining. So they contrast principal bargaining with positional bargaining. So the paradigm of positional bargaining is you say, you know, I'll buy that for $20. And you say, no, I want $40. And then we converge on a price of $30. I meet you halfway. Principal bargaining is where you make the case as the seller of how much
it's the real art of the deal
you put into it, how much your hourly work rate is.
It's the real art of the deal.
How much the costs of putting this product together was, and then the fairness of the price. And then you say, well, look, when you take into account my labor, the parts, and the cost of getting it to you, it costs me about $28. And so I'd like for you to pay me $28. And when I say, oh, please take 20, you say, no, the fair price is $28. And you can discuss details. You can say, you know, I understand if you have these constraints on you, but the principled bargaining approach is basically transparency. It's about principles, not taking some position. And this is absolutely the way Hamas has approached these negotiations, right? Hamas has always said, we need the war to end. We need the siege to end. We need an exchange of prisoners. We need reconstruction, you know, aid and reconstruction. And so they have these principles that they never diverge from. And Israel has this kind of rolling position. The other huge concept in the Harvard negotiating project is the BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So the BATNA, basically in a war context, means the BATNA is you got to keep going, you got to keep fighting, you go back to war. And so Israel's bargaining approach is basically to genocide and commit genocide and make life absolutely commit these horrific atrocities and say, we'll let up on the atrocities if you, we'll dial them back from a 10 to a 9 if you give us whatever it is we want. And then they try to get something and then they dial it back up. So it's bad faith, of course. We start from bad faith, but racists can't do good faith anything with people they believe they're racially superior to. So racism and negotiation are inherently in conflict, because if you're racially superior, you don't have to keep agreements with your inferiors, right? If you don't acknowledge the negotiating project is for people who are negotiating under more or less, humans to negotiate with each other. If you're the Ubermensch, if you're the chosen people, you don't have to negotiate with your inferiors. So Israel and America and all of these racially infected societies are notorious for making agreements and not keeping to them with people they deem inferior. So Israel's approach is, commit genocide for a while. If they're facing some constraint like running out of missiles or interceptors or morale in the army or armored vehicles or whatever it is, if they're facing some constraint, political constraints inside Israel, people want the hostages back or whatever it is, then they'll offer to dial back the pace of the genocide in exchange for some concessions. So that's where these things come together, is the Israelis are...
It's like genocidal extortion. Extortion through genocide.
Are trying to dial back the genocide a little bit and extract something that they need from Hamas, and Hamas is maintaining their principles in the face of that. And so the BATNA, the question for Hamas is always, can they continue? Can they sustain? How much can they endure, and how much can the people of Gaza endure in terms of Israel's genocide? And can they, given that Israel is bad faith and they're going to continue the genocide at the speed that they're able to sustain, what is what are the possibilities for achieving a principled outcome at the negotiating table or in the battlefield. And that's what's in play here. That's the impossible situation that we find ourselves in here on planet Earth. So they said they were discussing the plan seriously, and then we'll get to their reply shortly. On the military front, they were shelling the Israelis at Khan Yunis. They were hitting the Israelis with landmines in Gaza City. And when Hamas said they were discussing it, Soraya Al-Quds said, no, not in the West Bank. Soraya Al-Quds said in the West Bank will remain active and our rifles will not deviate from the chest of the enemy. They issued that statement on the 2nd of October. Okay, now let's get to, I think we had better talk about what Trump was offering, and then we can talk about Hamas's response, and then we can talk about where we are now. So my original plan before Hamas responded, I knew I was going to do a sit-rep today, and my plan was to go over these 21 points, not because I thought they were anything all that different. Overall, they're all of these offers that American presidents have made. So Biden made one that the Israelis ignored. Trump made one that the Israelis followed for a few months and then rolled over. And this one, I assumed when I came out that the Israelis were instantly going to dismiss it or ignore it. Not dismiss it, not so much dismiss it, just simply ignore it and continue with their genocide. But what I think is happening is Israel will accept something, a slowdown of their pace of their genocide, if they are facing some constraint. So the question is, are they facing some constraint in terms of their military in the Battle of Gaza City that's going on that makes them want to try to pause or slow things down and possibly treat this pause, which they need, presumably, as a chance to extract agreements from Hamas as if they're giving something up, when in fact all they are doing is taking a pause that they need themselves. Anyway, Trump's plan. So psychologically interesting about Trump's plan is the first point is Gaza will be de-radicalized, terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. This is really interesting. Gaza poses a threat to its neighbors. Neighbors? What neighbors? What neighbors? Gaza doesn't have neighbors. Gaza has an occupation. Gaza has forces surrounding it. And Gaza's captor, one, singular, wants to kill people in Gaza without any consequences. But it's interesting that the first point is this de-radicalization. The first target of this plan is the minds of people in Gaza. They're supposed to be passive victims, and they're supposed to be de-radicalized. So it's like they're fighting something. They're fighting the ideas of the people they seek to kill. Then, too, Gaza will be redeveloped for the benefit of its people. That's an interesting, redeveloped for the benefit of its people. And the people that are going to redevelop it are the people who destroyed it in the first place. If Israel and Hamas agree to the proposal, the war will immediately end, with the IDF halting all operations and gradually withdrawing from the strip. So that's interesting. And that's Netanyahu precisely said they're not going to do that today. He said they're going to keep, their corridors, various corridors in various areas. The same way that they're trying to do in Lebanon and Syria, they're going to keep their model for occupation is now to keep the army in these areas, keep them relatively safe, but also control. So they had exerted all this control from the outside, and now they want to turn it into more of a death camp and exert control on the inside of it and control every detail, more details of people's lives, and of course deaths. Not sure. This doesn't, needless to say, this cancels point number 2 about redeveloping for the benefit of its people. Netanyahu saying they're going to continue to control. Within 48 hours of Israel publicly accepting the deal, all living and deceased hostages will be returned. Once the hostages are returned, number 5, Israel will free several hundred Palestinian security prisoners serving life sentences and over 1,000 Gazans arrested since the start of the war, along with the bodies of several hundred Palestinians. So it's not all for all. It's all Israelis captives for a fraction of the Palestinian prisoners. But it's a lot of life sentences, which means people who would never have been able to get out except through a prisoner exchange like this. But there are thousands of people they've abducted since the war, which is another strategy of Israel's, right? They make things much worse using all the power they have, and then they act as if it's a concession to return things to a worse than the pre-status quo. And so that's this whole premise of this deal is they have committed this genocide, killed hundreds of thousands of people, destroyed, poisoned Gaza, and they're going to seek all kinds of rewards and concessions for just slowing the genocide down. Once the hostages, number 6, once the hostages are returned, Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence will be granted amnesty, while members who wish to leave the strip will be granted safe passage to receiving countries. So this is basically trying to repeat what happened with the Palestinian Liberation Organization in Lebanon in 1982. Once this agreement is reached, aid will surge into the strip at rates no lower than the benchmark set in January 2025, 600 trucks of aid per day. People have pointed out that this is an admission that they're not allowing aid, and that they've weaponized aid and they're using aid as a weapon. Aid will be distributed by the UN and the Red Crescent, along with other international organizations not associated with Israel or Hamas. So this is number 8. People have noted this leaves the door open to the murderous GHF. Gaza will be administered by a temporary transitional government of Palestinian technocrats and supervised, this is the Tony Blair clause, right? Supervised by a new international body established by the US. The PA point 9 is Blair, getting them in there. Point 10, economic plan, economic zone is point number 11. 12, no one will be forced to leave Gaza, but those who choose to leave will be allowed to return. Sure. 13, that's fine. The thing is, nobody has any, nobody said anything about this. So it's one of these, don't believe anything until it's officially denied. Nobody on the Palestinian side said Palestinians are leaving. It's just the Israelis and the Americans talking about people leaving Gaza. Number 13, Hamas will have no role in Gaza's governance whatsoever. There will be a commitment to destroy and stop building any offensive military infrastructure, including tunnels. Gaza's new leaders will commit to peaceful coexistence with their neighbors. This is, pretty vile. The people committing the genocide, right, are conditioning what the people resisting are supposed to say and do, and the role they have governance, the role they're supposed to have in governance. Security guarantees to ensure that Hamas and other factions comply with their obligations and Gaza ceases to pose a threat to Israel or its own people. Okay. Number 15, International Stabilization Force. Train and equip a Palestinian police force. So that's basically the Palestinian Authority, the same model as the West Bank. Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. Yeah, that's good. If Hamas, number 17,
cannot leave my neck
Hamas
alone.
delays or rejects this proposal, the above points will proceed in terror-free areas. So this is like crazy Israeli language. I you've probably heard that Netanyahu changed various things at the last minute. Like the Americans and the Arab states had agreed on a whole set of principles, and then Netanyahu changed it, and obviously the Americans said fine. And so they're going to try to do it without Hamas, right? Israel agrees not to carry out future strikes in Qatar. That's number 18. That's a funny one. Yeah, that's, as they say, offered without comment. Number 19 goes back to number 1. A process will be established to de-radicalize the population. This will include an interfaith dialogue aimed at changing mindsets and narratives, get this, in Israel and Gaza. Oh, so Israel's also going to engage in this interfaith dialogue and de-radicalize. Israel's going to de-radicalize, you guys. When Gaza's redevelopment has been advanced and the PA reform program has been implemented, the conditions may be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian statehood. That's 20. And then 21, the U.S. will establish a dialogue to agree on a political horizon. So I just thought the emphasis on de-radicalization, the emphasis on trying to get into the minds of Palestinians, like, which is, if you could just stop resisting, please, we would appreciate that. And if you could just change your mentality about our genociding you, that would be great. So now let me tell you how Hamas replied, okay? Because Hamas, people have noted, gave a very sophisticated reply. It's sophisticated on the one hand. On the other hand, it's the exact same thing they've always said. So let me just read it to you. So Hamas, out of keenness to stop the aggression and the war of extermination to which our steadfast people in the Gaza Strip are being subjected based on the national responsibility, Hamas conducted in-depth consultations with its leadership institutions, wide-ranging consultations to reach a responsible position. After extensive study, the movement has made its decision and submitted its response. Okay, so they appreciate the efforts of President Donald Trump, calling for an immediate halt to the war on the Gaza Strip, the exchange of prisoners, the immediate entry of aid, the rejection of the occupation of the Strip, and the rejection of the displacement of our Palestinian people from it. So here's what we all can agree on. In this context, and in a manner that achieves the cessation of the war and a complete withdrawal, the movement announces its approval to release all Israeli captives living and deceased according to the exchange formula mentioned in President Trump's proposal, provided that the field conditions for the exchange process are secured. So basically, they're saying we're prepared to do all Israeli prisoners in exchange for not all the Palestinian prisoners. And again, that's a little bit, the idea was always all for all. And they used to say, if Israel kills more prisoners, then the price per prisoner goes up. We want the same number. We want our prisoners back, regardless of how many Israeli captives we have. We want all of our prisoners back, right? But so there is this flexibility that they're showing where they say we're willing to release all the hostages, all the captives in exchange for only some Palestinian prisoners, which is all that's ever happened in all previous prisoner exchanges. They've never emptied the Israeli prisons, and the Israeli prisons are going to be full of Palestinians while Israel exists, because it's a big reason why Israel exists. There's not too much reason for Israel to exist if they're not constantly stealing land, capturing Palestinians, torturing Palestinians. It is their reason for, they don't really necessarily understand it, but that is the only reason that they exist. They don't have much of an independent existence or identity beyond that. So, okay, let's continue. The movement also renews its approval to hand over the administration of the Gaza Strip to a Palestinian body of independence technocrats based on Palestinian national consensus and based on Arab and Islamic support. Again, they've always said this. They've never said we insist on vegan control, but they do say that the Palestinian future is a Palestinian matter. So that's what they say. If until elections we hand it over to some consensus technocratic government, fine, but the elections are solely a Palestinian matter and Hamas gets to run. So this is what they say. This is their kind of but, right? There's their yeses, and they've given all their yeses, and here's their caveats. As for the other issues mentioned in President Trump's proposal concerning the future of the Gaza Strip and the authentic rights of the Palestinian people, this is linked to a comprehensive national position and based on relevant international laws and resolutions, and it will be discussed through a comprehensive Palestinian national framework of which Hamas will be a part and to which it will contribute with full responsibility. The issues of de-radicalization, the issues of Hamas playing no role in governance, the issues of Hamas leaving, the issues of Hamas, all of this stuff, these are ignored, right? Hamas basically said, yeah, whatever, we'll talk about that, but they're not agreeing to it. And they're basically saying no to the idea that this peace plan will override international law or Palestinian rights, democratic rights, right? They don't have the right to give that away. They can't give that away. Nobody can give that away, and Israel can't take it. So there's no point in trying to load that into a peace deal. Hamas spokesman or
In
leader
a stunning and massive development, tech giant Microsoft has announced that it is terminating parts of the Israeli military's access to proprietary technology that it was using to conduct mass surveillance and targeting of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. As The Guardian reported last week, quote, Microsoft told Israeli officials late last week that Unit 8200, the military's elite spy agency, had violated the company's terms of service by storing the vast trove of surveillance data in its Azure cloud platform, sources familiar with the situation said. The decision to cut off Unit 8200's ability to use some of its technology results directly from an investigation published by The Guardian last month. It revealed how Azure was being used to store and process the trove of Palestinian communications in a mass surveillance program. The project began after a meeting in 2021 between Microsoft's chief executive Satya Nadella and the unit's then commander Yossi Sariel. In response to the investigation, Microsoft ordered an urgent external inquiry to review its relationship with Unit 8200. Its initial findings have now led the company to cancel the unit's access to some of its cloud storage and AI services, end quote. Now, as a journalist, I have to underline the fact that this major policy shift from Microsoft would not have happened without the investigative co-reporting by my colleagues at The Guardian, the Israeli-Palestinian publication 972 magazine, and the Hebrew language outlet Local Call. But they were by no means the only forces pressuring Microsoft and exposing the company's technological and financial complicity in Israel's genocide and apartheid system in occupied Palestine. As Real News viewers and listeners know, we have been extensively covering the tech worker-led revolt from within Microsoft and the grassroots movement to pressure Microsoft to divest from genocide. For more than a year, under the banner of the No Azure for Apartheid movement, current and former tech workers, along with community members and supporters, have been organizing to expose and put an end to Microsoft's ties to the Israeli war machine and taking actions to disrupt business as usual at Microsoft until their demands were met. Those actions included setting up a liberated zone encampment on Microsoft's global headquarters last month, which I was on the ground reporting on for The Real News, and conducting a sit-in in Microsoft President Brad Smith's executive office. Microsoft responded to those actions by calling the cops and by firing the employees involved. Just about every single Microsoft worker that I've interviewed about this in the past 2 months has been fired. And today on The Real News, we are speaking with 3 of those fired Microsoft workers and members of the No Azure for Apartheid movement. Welcome to you all. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. First, I want to go around the table and ask if y'all could introduce yourselves to people watching and give us your initial reactions to this news from Microsoft. In terms of the movement's struggle to get Microsoft to divest from genocide, as y'all have been repeatedly demanding. What does this news mean and what does it not mean?
Hi, so my name is Nisreen Jadadat. I am a former Microsoft worker. I was fired at the end of August after I participated in the Liberation Zone encampments and rallies. I think that this news is evidence that no target, no matter how big, is unmovable. Microsoft is the second largest corporation in the world. It is the second largest tech company in the world. And the fact that the exposure of Microsoft complicity by journalists and by activists internally and externally, and the sustained pressure that has been put on Microsoft, forced it to cut off some services, is evidence that direct action works and that no target is unmovable. I will say, though, that this is by no means victory. I've seen some outlets reporting that, Microsoft is all good now and we can just move on with our lives. No, we can't. This decision only cuts off a few services to a single military unit. And we will not stop organizing. We will not stop protesting until all of our demands are met, which includes cutting off all of Azure services and contracts with the Israeli government and military. Materially, what does this mean? For Palestinians on the ground in Gaza in the West Bank, this really doesn't mean much. A starving Palestinian child cannot eat a disabled Azure service. And we need to keep that in mind as we're organizing to ground ourselves, which is what we need to do for Palestine right now. And until Microsoft fully divests, we're going to continue. We won't stop, we won't rest, and we will keep organizing.
My name is Julia Sean, and I've been a tech worker at Microsoft for almost 5 years. I was fired the same day that Nazreen was fired for also taking part in the Liberated Zone protests and also having been suspended twice for
Marzouk told Al Jazeera, "We will enter into negotiations regarding all issues related to the movement and weapons. Implementing the points of the plan requires detailed and understanding. The plan cannot be implemented without negotiation. All details relating to the peacekeeping force require understanding and clarification. Hamas is a national liberation movement, and the definition of terrorism in the plan cannot be applied to it. We agreed to its main headings in principle. Its implementation requires negotiation. We will hand over the weapons to the future Palestinian state, and whoever governs Gaza will have the weapons in hand." So there will never be a period where Gaza is disarmed. They will have, the resistance will have arms until there's a state, and then when there's a state, the state will have the arms, which makes a lot of sense, right? The resistance needs arms to resist genocide. Genocide is what's happening.
A federal judge has temporarily
you don't give away your
blocked
arms.
the Trump administration from sending National Guard troops to Portland, and the White House is planning an appeal. In her opinion, the judge wrote this about recent clashes between protesters and federal officers. She said that they are inexcusable, but they are nowhere near the type of incidents that cannot be handled by regular law enforcement. She also went on to say that the Trump administration's arguments, quote, risk blurring the line between civil and military federal power to the detriment of this nation, a sentiment echoed by Oregon's Attorney General.
Mobilizing the United States military in our cities is not normal. It should not be normal, and we will fight to make sure that it is never normal. Today's ruling is a healthy check on the president's power. And as the president, you must have an actual facts based on reality, not social media or just your gut feeling, if you want to mobilize the military here in the United States.
Now, the temporary restraining order expires on October 18th, and AG Dan Rayfield says the state plans to ask for an extension.
If you've been following American politics for a while, you might remember Fox News doing about 1,000 segments on so-called Obama phones for years and years, because there was like a subsidy so that people could have phones which are required to participate in our economy and workforce. I have a feeling they're going to be less interested in Trump phones. And the exciting thing about Trump phones is that you already have one. Hundreds of millions of people do. It's just a phone that now is not going to be anywhere near as private as it was, because ICE is buying all of this software being paid for by the government that lets them just access your private information across a wide range of incredibly popular apps. And so you're just going to be going about your day on your phone, and maybe ICE is listening in. Maybe ICE is reading your messages. And that is brought to you by Donald Trump, mass deportation, and his fabulously well-funded secret police. We're getting this information about some of these recent purchases of apps from the tech news site 404 Media. They got a redacted acquisition document, and it shows ICE entering into a contract to buy all-in-one tools from a company called Penlink that will allow agents to compile, process, and validate billions of daily location signals from hundreds of millions of mobile devices. The document also includes references to payments for services, including face detection, advanced face search, and a dark web data feed. One of the products, Tangles, automatically ingests historical data from multiple communications channels, mobile forensics, internet-based communications, location data, financial records, and web intelligence. And the company that created this platform, they previously had been available on Meta. They were kicked off for alleged
web intelligence sounds like everything you do online. And then everything else is just to track, like, offline data. Whether that be keystrokes or location services that don't necessarily use the internet, but use the cell networks. That's wild.
Allegedly being found using Facebook and WhatsApp accounts to snoop on activists and opposition politicians in Hong Kong and Mexico. So they've already shown themselves perfectly willing to crack down on dissidents in other countries. Now they get to do it here. And the Trump administration has reportedly restarted a $2 million contract with Paragon Solutions, which is a spyware company founded in Israel, whose products have been accused of facilitating the surveillance of journalists and activists. Paragon has advertised their zero-click graphite program that can quietly invade the mobile phone of its target and extract its contents, even from encrypted apps. Now, that had been shut down under Biden after the DHS had found it had broken a law involving usage of location data. But again, breaking those laws don't matter to Trump, and it's back on the table. And so this is a very wide range of different ways to violate your privacy, to collect information. And it seems likely to be used in connection with these other things we're talking about to crack down on activists and people criticizing Donald Trump. What do you think, Brett?
It's just like so obvious. And that's why it's so frustrating that people who are on like the Trump side of it don't see it as obvious. Like, that's the problem, is they've built so much, and I don't even think it's just them. It's more glaring on their side of it, to me anyways. But like, they've built so much of their identity around Donald Trump being right about stuff and being the opposite of like the surveillance state and being the opposite of all these things that they've criticized about the establishment. But like, watching people slowly come to the realization is fun, that he is not, coming to the realization that he is not symbolic of those things they thought he was. That's fun to watch. And it's wildly infuriating to watch them be like, listen, the surveillance state's out of control. The government's too.
This Taylor Lorenz video, the internet crackdown, no one saw coming. Really, no one saw it coming? Just because you didn't see it coming, because your head's in the fucking sand, doesn't mean that everybody did not see it coming. Fuck me.
Cash Patel is a lot of things. Not transparent, a liar, and we can go on. And that is why I don't believe I'm about to say this, but Cash Patel and the FBI have decided to cut ties with the Anti-Defamation League. I kid you not. Check it out. FBI cuts ties with the ADL amid conservative backlash. FBI Director Kash Patel announces break with anti-Semitism watchdog amid outrage over description of Charlie Kirk. So, first and foremost, let me make this very clear. He is not cutting ties with the ADL because he cares for the Palestinian people. It's not because of that. He cut ties with the ADL because on their website, they had criticism of Charlie Kirk and Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA, and they described it as, I guess, one of the hostile, radical organizations. Yeah. So it's partisan. So let's go on here. The top law enforcement agency in the United States has cut ties with the ADL, accusing the advocacy organization and anti-Semitism watchdog of spying on conservatives. The FBI Director Kash Patel made the announcement on Wednesday after prominent conservative influencers, including Elon Musk, pounced on the ADL's inclusion of the murdered right-wing activist Charlie Kirk in its glossary of extremism and hate. So some people didn't know this, but yeah, the ADL, for quite some time, they had Turning Point defined as one of the extremism and hate organizations on its website. And yet, Turning Point USA was still willing to do the bidding of Israel. I mean, it's really wild when you think about it. Yeah, that was from the ADL. In a brief statement, Patel singled out the ADL's association with former FBI Director James Comey, a strident critic of Donald Trump, who was indicted last week on charges of obstruction and lying to U.S. Congress. Patel said Comey had written love letters to the ADL and embedded agents within the group, which he accused of running disgraceful ops spying on Americans. So now it's okay to say that these organizations were spying on Americans? This FBI won't partner with the political fronts masquerading as watchdogs, Patel said in a social media post. He did not elaborate on or provide evidence for his claims. In 2014, speech to the ADL's National Leadership Summit, Comey said the FBI had made the advocacy group's law enforcement and society training mandatory for personal and partnered with it to draft a hate crimes training manual. Comey called the ADL's experience in investigating hate crimes essential and its training eye-opening and insightful. If this sounds a bit like a love letter to the ADL, it is, and rightfully so. That's coming from James Comey. While Patel did not mention Kirk in his statement, his announcement came just a day after the ADL removed more than 1,000 entries about alleged extremism from its website amid right-wing outrage over references to the late activist. The ADL said it made the decision as many of the terms were outdated and a number of entries had been intentionally misrepresented and misused. No, they made the decision because they received pressure from people on the right. Which brings up another point. Why doesn't the left bring that same type of pressure to the ADL? See, they think they slick. I'm gonna show you what their website says in just a second. We're gonna talk about how they, I feel, purposely added other groups.
Well, Israel and Hamas say they're close to an agreement. So what's the timetable for peace?
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying there is a major achievement on the horizon. Christian De La Rosa has the details.
We are on the verge of a significant achievement. Those are the words of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, claiming victory over Hamas, just as they accepted the peace deal brokered by President Trump.
Mission accomplished, huh?
Netanyahu releasing a statement from his office addressing Israelis, saying he hopes to announce the hostages' release in the coming days, as well as laying out a plan to disarm Hamas and maintain their presence on the Gaza Strip. Attributing their successes made throughout the war to his own leadership and the heroic efforts by the IDF, applying pressure to Hamas to return 207 of the 251 taken and accept the deal their Israeli government brought. A stark departure from President Trump's tone, who publicly applied pressure on Netanyahu to take the deal and stop dropping bombs on Gaza, going as far as telling an anxious reporter about a phone call with Netanyahu. I said, Bibi, this is your chance for victory. He was fine with it, adding, he's got to be fine with it. He has no choice. With me, you got to be fine.
Well, that was Christian De La Rosa reporting. In that phone call, it's being reported President Trump also told Netanyahu he, quote, went too far in Gaza and Israel lost a lot of support in the world. President Trump's envoy is headed to Egypt for ceasefire talks. Despite Hamas agreeing to the plan, Israeli strikes on Gaza continue, with the latest strike killing dozens of people.
Right.
Territory as a Vandy fan, but how do you feel about this scene right now in Alabama?
Oh, this is exceptional. Well, Asperger should have a different name too. It's just Asperger. Yeah. That's rude. Yeah, it's a lot. I've been putting meat in it. You guys smell good, man.
Really?
Yeah.
What do we smell like when we walk?
Honestly, I usually think it's like a lot of deodorant.
Wow.
You see a motherfucker start at the wrist, bro, and put that shit on. Do you believe in the devil?
I remain unconvinced that such a thing exists.
Dang, you challenging him. Yeah. Do you think you would have owned a slave or not?
Let's see here.
I don't know if this conversation is going to be good.
Yeah, we probably should move. Yeah, we should do it like an abrupt cut.
From Maryland, baby. Dang, cuz. Maryland, bruh.
I feel like you're niggaing it up for me.
No, I'm good.
He's like, yeah, let me black this show out. Damn, cuz. Why do you do that for me? I feel like you don't do that type of reaction for anybody else.
I gotta get it out while I got a chance.
Damn, cuz, that's cool on Crip. Yeah, he's gonna do some dance next.
Dude, I'm just saying.
Hold on. So what happened exactly? Where did it all go wrong? On Saturday, the 27th of September, in the dim glow of the Beacon Theatre, under lights meant to illuminate laughter, Theo Von walked in to suffer closer to revelation than routine. What was supposed to be a triumph, a Netflix special film before a sold-out crowd, unfolded like a confession under divine scrutiny. In the weeks leading up to it, Theo has stripped himself bare, stepping off antidepressants to feel the full weight of life again. But instead of clarity, he found chaos. Then came the ICE video, a digital serpent that used his face without consent, coiling his name into politics he never agreed to. Overnight, Theo Von, son of an immigrant father, was turned into a mouthpiece for a message he despised. The government called, offering him extra protection, as if angels with badges could guard him from a storm of hate.
If you need some extra security in your neighborhood, or some extra police cars on patrol, let me know.
Now he speaks, not just as a comedian, but as a man shedding old allegiances. Turning from Maga's fading altar, his idols cracking beneath the weight of betrayal and infighting. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene's public rebellion against her own party feels like a sign of something ending, a revelation of rocks beneath the red banners. In this video, we'll explore Theo unraveling the circus that was his Beacon Theatre taping, the paranoia that followed, and the burden of fame that feels less like a blessing and more like a cross to carry. As his peers Brendan Shaw and Brian Callen debate whether he stumbled or stood brave in his own vulnerability, one truth cuts through the noise. Theo Von isn't falling apart. He's being remade, piece by jagged piece, in the fire of public spectacle and private record.
I don't think it's that deep, but alright.
People that are genociding you, unless you're the Prime Minister of Lebanon, who rules at the ICJ that Israel's committing genocide, and then goes back home to Lebanon, becomes Prime Minister, and tries to disarm Lebanon's resistance in order to help the people committing genocide. But the resistance's position is the weapons will stay. So the resistance factions made a statement saying, we affirm that our Palestinian people who have made all these sacrifices and stood firm against the Zionist fascist machine of crime deserve to have their steadfastness and heroism crowned with outcomes that meet their national aspirations for freedom, independence, and ending the occupation, not by liquidating their cause and robbing them of their rights. So they take the same, they basically, like, we're following Hamas here. We can release the captives. We can have a technocratic government. We will not be surrendering Palestinian rights or the cause. Now, here's another take on it. Speaking of Lebanon, so Sheikh Naim Qassem, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, he also gave his take on this plan. So he made a speech where he talked about Lebanon issues, but also this plan. And he said, Israel and the U.S. are working for greater Israel. Trump's plan is full of dangers. It's a plan full of question marks. And he asks, according to Trump's plan, when the administration is in the hands of an international party and the responsibility for managing their affairs is stripped from the people of the land, and when the prisoners are taken in the first days, what will we have achieved after all these battles? He says it's an Israeli plan in American guise. He says there are 4 reasons behind the putting forth of Trump's plan. First, to clear Israel before the global wave that condemned it, especially through the United Nations. And second, because of the escalating popular movement in American and European countries. So the plan came as a way to soften the image. We saw the global Samud flotilla that launched from many countries, and this reveals the level of degradation that Israel has reached. And we extend a special greeting to Spain, which carried this issue in a distinct way from the rest of the countries. We will await the decisive word from the Palestinians, because what was put forth is a plan and not an agreement, and nothing can happen except based on agreement. And he used the same kind of wording for Lebanon and Palestine. He said, the Israelis are trying to get through politics what they failed to achieve through war. But there's an interesting also military dimension here in both Naim Qassem's speech and a thing that I read, a statement from Saraya Al-Quds commander today. So Naim Qassem admitted, he said, there's no military parity between us and Israel. However, we can, continue to fight because we believe in resistance, basically. And this field commander from Saraya Al-Quds, he made the statement, which I thought was interesting in terms of certain things I haven't heard about the way the battles are proceeding. He said, we are fighting a very complex battle in Gaza City, and the enemy is practicing the utmost degree of benefit from previous battles with the aim of reducing losses in its ranks. So the casualty aversion of the Israelis is extreme, and the way they're fighting now is very casualty averse. And so it is difficult. I think what this commander is acknowledging, that it's very difficult to inflict casualties on the Israelis because the way that they're fighting. He says, the enemy is advancing slowly and by means of unmanned vehicles to detect and target the fighting cells.
Yeah, using
we are
the
fully aware of that and are
robots.
foiling many opportunities. The enemy's advance toward the heart of Gaza City is taking place under the eyes of our resistance fighters, and we have tactics whose title is valuable targets and the largest number of enemy soldiers killed and wounded. We tell the enemy soldiers we are not far from you, and you will see our faces whenever we decide to, because we are fighting a harsh and complex war of attrition. We understand our steps well. The enemy will not be safe in our beloved Gaza. Yes, it can advance, but at the cost of its presence is well known to the criminal Zamir, because Zamir is the chief of the army right now, the Israeli army. Our message to the struggling, patient people is that we feel your pain, and we always strive to make this aggression costly for the enemy, and we kiss the head of every individual of our people. And God willing, our collective patience will soon yield glory in a near dawn. So it's the casualty aversion that I noticed in this. It's also the fact that they acknowledge, as they always have, that the Israelis can advance. The objective of the resistance is to make it as costly as possible. So, okay. So now what happens now? Netanyahu has said, I'm going to announce, hopefully I will announce to you soon that we're going to get all our hostages back while keeping key parts of the Gaza Strip. So that's Netanyahu's understanding of this plan. Trump has said, I expect the bombing of Gaza to stop immediately. Obviously, the bombing of Gaza hasn't stopped. So I don't think this is all that orchestrated. It could be. I'm always inclined to think that things are more orchestrated than they appear. And I've been much more, I've moved much farther in that direction over the course of the past 2 years than I was before. I've never been a big believer that, stumbling into empire and incompetent imperialists and stuff. I've never been a big believer in that. But I'm even less of a believer in that now. On the other hand, what's happening with Netanyahu and Trump's public statements here doesn't look to me like they are making one another look stupid. And especially when this happens, it's ultimately going to make Trump look stupid, because what Netanyahu wants is what Netanyahu gets. The question is, what is Netanyahu saying? Is what Netanyahu says he wants going to run up against hard constraints in the material world? Namely, can the army do this battle of Gaza or not? And I think as the battle has started to shape up, I think the Israeli army is realizing that it's going to be long and it's going to be
So we have to talk about the
painful.
situation in Chicago. It says here, I'm in Brighton Park at the scene of a shooting. ICE and CPB shot a woman who was allegedly armed and blocked in agents with her vehicle. A large crowd of protesters is quickly forming. So let's see what's going on. And this was the headlines then from the local Chicago paper. Federal agents shoot woman, they say boxed in authorities on Chicago's southwest side. A lot of it doesn't make sense. This is what it says. Authorities were on patrol when they were rammed by 10 cars. I just don't know what to make of this. According to the statement from the Department of Homeland Security, the woman who was shot was armed with a semi-automatic weapon, prompting officers to open fire, DHS says. She was taken in fair condition to Mount Sinai Hospital. Already protesters are forming. It looks like ICE shot someone, and then they're claiming rammed by 10 cars. I guess that's their words. People, you can see what they're saying here. So the chanting, don't take the bait. The reporter down there says federal immigration agents have already shot pepper balls and thrown tear gas at the protesters, but they still remain here. The scene is really out of control in Chicago. This is just a few hours ago. It's getting worse. See some more. And for those of you in this area of Chicago, you can let me know if it's expanding to other parts, because we just talked about yesterday where it was reported that ICE was using Black Hawk helicopters to basically raid an apartment building, arrest everyone, put children in rental vans like U-Hauls. I always have to pause, because we don't want this to be normal in America. We don't want this to be daily life. This is another one. It says ICE agents and military personnel terrorizing peaceful communities in Chicago. And there's massive protests.
Get out of here! We don't want you! We don't want you! Do something! That's what you're protecting officers!
And frankly, what's going on is Trump's turning USA into a war zone. That's frankly what's going on. Or you could talk that Trump's looking for a civil war. I mean, essentially what you do, you just send in his federal agents and just start looking for fights and start instigating stuff. Fox News is going to say, and they leave out the shooting part. I just want to show you different points of view. Fox will say DHS.
The only reason why there is not a civil war right now is because the population that Trump is warring against just has chosen not to fire a shot. It is truly us who are keeping it cool in this situation.
Says ICE agents in Chicago suburb boxed in by 10 cars as tensions escalate, right? One of the drivers was reportedly armed. Officers fired defensive shots. So they leave out the part here where federal agents shoot a person, right? So I just want to show you how different things can be covered. Kristi Noem, this is just an hour ago, so that's the head of Homeland Security, that's the ICE Barbie person. She says, today in Chicago, members of our...
The United States is too big for a nationwide civil war to happen all at once. It'll happen city by city. You know, California is the fourth largest economy in the world on its own. So you got LA, New York, Chicago. Those three cities is where you're going to see the beginnings of what could be a civil war, depending on the response of the population. Full stop.
Our law enforcement were attacked, rammed, and boxed in by 10 vehicles. I just don't know what to make of that 10 vehicle thing, including an attacker with a semi-automatic weapon. I'm deploying more special operations to control the scene. Reinforcements are on their way. If you see a law enforcement officer, thank them, is what she says. Listen to the governor in Illinois, what he has to say.
This is not about fighting crime or about public safety. This is about sowing fear and intimidation and division among Americans. It was about creating a pretext to send armed military troops into our communities. This is about consolidating power in Donald Trump's hands. What he plans to do with that power, now or during the 2026 elections, should worry all of us. When you add to that the Trump administration's effort to label as dangerous free speech critical of him, White House senior staff calling the Democratic Party fascist, the Trump-appointed FCC chair threatening to revoke broadcast licenses and the approval of a merger in order to silence late-night comedians, Trump's threats to jail political opponents, you cannot call this anything except an attack on the Constitution of the United States.
And this is sort of why we have to put this all in the context, right? Trump's looking to essentially start fights. Then he wants to control the media so that we don't see what's happening or even talk about it or criticize him. And then that's why it's important to talk about these kind of events. I mean, this is really serious. I believe this is the second person that ICE has shot. The last one I'd heard, I can't remember what city, I just don't remember, guys, but I know it was a situation where they said they tried to arrest someone and the person tried to drive away and they shot him. That's my understanding of it. This one, it's hard to make of this one because they keep saying the 10 cars. I'll just read exactly what the report is and you guys can make up your own mind. It says, U.S. Border Patrol shot a woman Saturday morning on Chicago's southwest side, marking the second shooting since President Donald Trump's administration launched an aggressive immigration enforcement operation in the area last month. Tricia McLaughlin, a spokeswoman for the Department of Homeland Security, said the shooting erupted after patrolling agents were, quote, rammed by 10 cars. I still don't get that, and boxed in. Agents then fired, they're saying, defensive shots when they discovered the woman was, quote, armed with a semi-automatic weapon while driving one of the cars, McLaughlin said. So I don't know. Are they claiming that 10 of the cars are like an army of people are against him? Is that what they're trying to claim? And this is the part where I don't get, because if there's one person that they shot, what about the other 9 cars? It doesn't really make sense. This is more, so I want to read exactly what it says. The Chicago Sun-Times and WBEZ have not independently verified the Fed's account, so we don't know exactly what's going on. The exact time and location of the shooting weren't immediately known. McLaughlin said, quote, no law enforcement officers were seriously injured, and the wounded woman, quote, drove herself to the hospital to get care for wounds. So did she get away then, I guess, is how we would, take that. Like, did she fire on the, ICE people then drive away? And that's how I read that. But Larry Merritt, a Chicago Fire spokesman, said she was found near 39th Street and Kenzie Avenue and taken in fair condition to Mount Sinai Hospital. So she must have driven away a bit and then stopped. That's how I read this. That's why I said I have to read exactly with you guys. Also says, Chicago police records shared with the Sun-Times showed the Border Patrol agent had called for assistance, reporting that roughly 30 agents had been, quote, surrounded by a large crowd of people. That's sort of what we're showing you guys probably in these videos. But police officials weren't sent to help, the records show. A police spokesperson said officers ultimately responded to a call of a person shot in 3900 block of South Kenzie Avenue, quote, to document the incident and to maintain safety for traffic control for all living and working in the area. Here's more scenes. This is just a few minutes ago. Then it reads, at least 3 people were just arrested by federal immigration agents. They then deployed several tear gas canisters, and honestly, it's hard to know what's going on. If I get any updates, I'll let you guys know, and please stay safe out there, and I'll catch you on the next video.
So an Alabama man is suing the federal government after he says he was detained not just once.
Can we talk? anymore?
I'll be
I
right
hope
back.
so. I'm at a desk after all. I've got the suit on, kind of. No pronouns, unless you like that, in which case, they're whatever ones you like the most. In fact, let's make me a real authority. All right. Hi. Can we even talk? Is that even possible anymore? 24-hour cable news and its hyper-partisanization has seeped into all aspects of the media and internet, and more importantly, social media, which brings on a whole new set of communication problems like parasocial relationships, algorithms chasing our attention and heightening negative emotions, bad actors and partisan political operatives, isolation and atomization and tribalism exacerbated by the pandemic, bots from all kinds of places for all kinds of reasons, misinformation from bots and humans alike, stories being forgotten too quickly, the boring culture war, all the polarization, and like it or not, a lot of our representatives, officials, media, and billionaires do discourse on specifically Twitter. And then one of those billionaires bought it and created a monetary incentive for posting and getting attention. The most attention gets you more money, you see. That'll fix it. Oh, also another of those Twitter billionaires is the president and has his own social media site he also communicates on. So can we even, talk to each other effectively about anything, let alone a tragedy? I don't know. So, what's in the news? About 3 weeks ago, from when this episode comes out, a teen boy in Colorado shot 2 classmates before killing himself. The shooter had been radicalized online by white supremacist propaganda, which is so often the case. In fact, snoozers, school shooting is so often the case that on that same day, there was another one. The assassination of political activist and conservative podcaster Charlie Kirk while he was speaking at Utah Valley University. It's on camera. It is a horrific tragedy for his family and friends and fans, and anyone who thinks the wanton acts of gun violence in this country are a tragedy. It's fucked up that he died like that. It's fucked up that people were there. It's fucked up that it happened when he was in the middle of talking about gun violence for a YouTube short. It's fucked up that millions of people saw it happen on the same day there was another separate school shooting. How do we even talk about that? Can we? Kirk was, in the most unbiased news language, a right-wing libertarian influencer kind of guy with some inflammatory opinions on various social and political issues. He obviously did not deserve to die for those opinions, even were one to think them to be bad opinions. This divisive figure wasn't just murdered, but murdered in front of the entire internet and in graphic, disturbing detail. And then everyone went on those horrible social media sites I described immediately and began to express their thoughts and feelings and conspiracies. Those people interacted with others who perhaps had opposing thoughts and feelings and conspiracies. This was all bad. Aside from the specific politics, there's a certain psychic damage one takes from years of seeing these horrors happen. And with the advancement of the internet, we now have to see them vividly and live, and everyone reacts publicly, emotionally, and in real time. And we will certainly talk about what those various reactions were. But first, although we here at Cody's Shody don't usually focus much on alleged shooters after tragedies for various reasons, we do need to a little bit talk about, for example, the bullets of Shoot Man in our news segment once. I'm sorry, I don't know why it's written this way. Who shot the guy with the, what's up with those bullets that the one guy shot the other guy with, and also how come? Did the graphic at least look good? Well, that sucks. So with mass and school shootings, no matter the specific ideology or motive, there's often this veil of terminally online meme rot with these shooters. Such was the case with the Colorado shooter, though he was also groomed by Nazis online. He seemed to have a fascination with and fondness for mass shooters, as many often do. The Christchurch shooter wrote a bunch of memes and mass shooter names on his guns, for example. They're all losers, is my point. The bullet casings found from Kirk's killer were covered in ironic memes, though no evidence has pointed to an interest in mass shooters. If one were to believe the shooter's text containing a whole lot of details about motive and location and weapon, quote, "Remember how I was engraving bullets? The fucking messages are mostly a big meme." Ultimately, it seems like he had no concrete political ideology, like Republican or Democrat, which is often the case, even with assassinations. The guy who shot Reagan did so to impress Jodie Foster. John Lennon's killer had that whole Catcher in the Rye stuff. Even JFK's assassin's motives are considered confusing and mysterious. There's usually a pattern of wanting fame as well, which is why we don't use mass shooters' names on this show. But you probably knew I was talking about Oswald there. In the case of Kirk's killer, we do have a bit of a coherent motive given. Specifically, we have those texts where the shooter is directly asked why they did it, and his reply, quote, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out." It's weird to quote the killer because I don't really like giving him attention, but those two sentences, the only stated motive he's given so far, will likely be cited for a long time. And it seems important to dig into who this person was because the right-wing and mainstream media narrative is going to be, to put it delicately, terrifying. What all the signs point to, at least according to the texts and Discord conversations that have been released, is that he was generally a apolitical gamer kid who grew up with conservative parents. He identified his dad as being a MAGA dude, but didn't seem to personally regard Trump's election win with any disdain, at least not on the Discord server he frequented. According to his mother, he had recently become more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. Family members also noted he'd become more political as well. Allegedly, he was in a romantic relationship with his roommate, a trans woman, which his family allegedly didn't know about. But we're still not certain about that detail for several reasons, and the killer hasn't been very cooperative. Not to speculate, but here, let's do it. It's easy to paint a picture of an apolitical and very online person who grew up around conservatives, felt very pent up, maybe unaccepted or attacked or suppressed for who he was, and then those frustrations manifested in a very violent, horrible way. I'm not framing that as an accusation toward anyone except the shooter, the fucking idiot. Also, people are complicated. Nobody is just one thing. But after events like these, people tend to oversimplify it. And ultimately, for those first few days, everyone simply chose what they wanted the shooter to be.
If there's a shooting at a synagogue, it is very likely to be either a white supremacist or a radical Muslim. If it is a shooting of a Republican politician, it is very likely to be a trans Antifa Marxist shooter.
That is just not true. We don't know what this kid is.
Thanks, Ben. I really needed that. So if it is the shooting of a Republican politician, it is very likely to be a trans Antifa Marxist shooter. That's a direct quote from this shooting expert. And I'd really like to know what he's basing that on. Was Reagan shot by a trans Antifa Marxist? Or hey, remember when someone took a shot at Trump? Boy, this country's f***ed. I completely forgot about that. It turns out that shooter was actually closer to being conservative. Not saying he was, mind you, but people who knew him said he was. And then later they found a social media account of his that was filled with anti-Semitic and anti-immigration comments. He seemed to have a wide range of potential targets, from Trump to generally the DNC to Kate Middleton. He chose Trump because he was in town that day. Point is that I have no idea who Ben is referring to here. Which trans/Antifa/Marxist fits his pattern? The only other example of a Republican politician being shot or being the victim of political violence is Steve Scalise in 2017. That shooter was left-wing. Also, a guy planned to shoot Brett Kavanaugh in 2022. So literally just like 1.5 examples from Ben, I guess. Literally all the other targets are Democrats, dog. It sure seems like Ben is simply using the moment to point fingers at this blur of words he associates with his political rivals. A mirage he wants to broadcast to everybody of the violent left. You can see this tactic in stark detail in this old clip of current Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy. Here, he mentions former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, a mass shooting survivor who was shot by an anti-government, generally apolitical conspiracy theorist who didn't think women should be in positions of power.
Maybe you can throw another one. I mean, look at Gabby Giffords. Look at Gabby Giffords, the Marxist who took her life, a leftist guy.
Victim not dead, shooter not a Marxist. Get used to that. It's lies. It's propaganda. Like what a propagandist or liar might do. More on that later. But first, here's something I need to get out. Something extremely important. Everything I just said about Ben or Duff's is quite similar to stuff I've almost certainly said about Charlie Kirk in the past. We've done videos calling him a liar and a propagandist and almost definitely a racist, as we have for a lot of these right-wing pundits seemingly in his circle. And the reason we've done that has always been so that you, the person watching, can see and show specifically how these people are incredibly unserious, and to change your or someone else's mind about them. And yes, sometimes we'll use the word fascist. Vice podcaster JD Vance wants to know why, though.
What is it that you want people to do when you call them Nazis? What is it that you want them to do when you call them fascists? What is the proper response when you say that Donald Trump and JD Vance and Charlie Kirk are threatening your safety? What do you expect people to do?
I will answer that with sentences, but first, a question answer for JD. What does your boss mean?
American politics today is between these far-left fascists led by Harris and her group. We have a fascist person running who's incompetent. She's a Marxist, communist, fascist, socialist. She's not actually a socialist. She's gone past that. Somebody's got to explain this one. There's a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist. There is a new far-left fascism that demands absolute allegiance. It is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. They're Marxists and communists and fascists. No, they've done very bad things to this country. They are indeed the enemy from within. This is communist, this is Marxist, this is fascist. It's the enemy from within. That's a bigger enemy than China and Russia. She's a Marxist. She's a fascist. If Comrade Kamala Harris gets 4 more years, you will be living a full-blown banana republic ruled by an anarchy and a tyranny. They're scum. They're scum. And they want to take down our country. They are absolute garbage.
He called half the country fascists on the 4th of July in one of those clips. But obviously, hypocrisy doesn't matter to these guys. They're fascists. So my sentence answer is, We don't use the word fascist because we wish harm on anybody. We use it because words mean things. And as we have explained before, and will explain in more detail later, it is the correct word for Donald Trump and the movement around him. And we want people to understand that. We do not wish harm on any of them. Some of them are in my band. That's what I'm getting at. I actually don't feel like we need to defend ourselves here, but it's worth noting this in order to talk about why Charlie Kirk's murder was so horrifying and wrong. I don't think he did politics the right way or whatever the hell, but the correct response to someone using hate speech or spouting propaganda is to either walk away from that person, call them a dipshit, make fun of them, or demand accountability for what they are saying. Proper accountability, not a death sentence. So in response to the shooter's alleged reason that some hate can't be negotiated out, I would say that, first of all, shut up, you stupid kid. You just assassinated a guy in front of hundreds of people. You don't know shit. But even if you feel that way about someone, murder still isn't the answer. Forgive my language, but it's literally overkill. Because yes, I also suspect that these people have no intention of actually changing their minds, no matter how much they act like it, because they're not there for conversation. But the real goal here is to change the minds of the people listening to them. That's the whole reason we cover them on this show. And boy, you know what won't change other people's minds? Killing their favorite guy. Also, murder is wrong and stuff. It is bad to think that what happened was good or should happen. And as anyone using the word fascist thoughtfully would know, fascists love to use any pretext of violence against them as an excuse to crack down on their opposition and tighten their grip. Again, more on that later. But in fact, another reason we on the show criticize people like Kirk is because we believe their opinions are antithetical to our beliefs that everyone deserves to live happily and with dignity. That has always included the people we dislike. You can't believe that and kill someone for their opinion. Charlie Kirk was a human with a wife and kids and people who loved him. Everyone except maybe Donald Trump has the potential to change and grow and evolve and give to the world, even Kirk. But this shooter has denied him that opportunity. Predetermined that Kirk could never evolve or grow as a person and be like, whoops, my bad. And nobody should be allowed to needlessly take that away, to tear such a deep, dark hole in so many lives. Again, I feel like our audience probably knows.
But twice by ICE agents. Leonardo Garcia Venegas says that both incidents happened while he was working at a construction site earlier this year, and that both happened purely because he's Latino. Garcia Venegas is an American citizen born to parents who are Mexican nationals. His lawsuit claims that both times he told the officers he was a citizen and showed them his real ID. As you know, the real ID is the identification card that's issued only to citizens and lawful residents, but the officers still wouldn't let him go.
There's no amount of paperwork that will save you from an ethnic cleansing.
According to his lawyer, the Department of Homeland Security is still disputing his account of why he was detained. His attorney, Jaba Situashvili, who's representing
all you have are the legal channels,
his
but
federal lawsuit, joins me here in
still won't
studio.
save you.
Jaba, thanks for being with me.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us exactly what happened to your client.
Sure. So Mr. Garcia is an American citizen who simply just wants to work in peace. 2 times now, immigration officers have barged onto work sites where he was working and detained him without any reason to think that he had done or was doing anything unlawful. The first time, they violently tackled him to the ground, kept him in handcuffs for over an hour, and then he had to take almost 2 weeks off from work because he was so terrified and traumatized by what happened. He was scared to go back. Finally, he gathers up the courage to resume working after a couple of weeks. And it turns out his fears were justified because it happened again. The second time around, immigration officers actually came into a nearly fully constructed house where he was working. They forced him outside. Again, as the last time, he showed him his real ID. He said, I'm a citizen. They refused to accept it. They refused to believe it. And again, they marched him down several blocks where they kept him detained for this time for about a half an hour. And they finally released him without any apology, without any explanation.
So humiliating, man.
There's no allegation
so cruel.
Really, that he's done anything wrong because he never did anything wrong. All he did was show up to work.
So DHS did give us a statement, so I want to get your response, of course. And here's what DHS is saying. During a targeted worksite operation, Garcia Venegas attempted to obstruct and prevent the lawful arrest of an illegal alien. He physically got in between agents and the subject they were attempting to arrest and refused to comply with numerous verbal commands. What's your response?
So the simplest response is that that's not true. And the reason I know that's not true is because this incident was captured on video camera from multiple angles.
We do have some video. We can probably roll that video, and maybe you can describe exactly what's happening and how the video was obtained.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this video shows Mr. Garcia being kind of violently tackled to the ground and then led away by these officers. And, interestingly enough, the first video was shot by other construction worker bystanders who were not Latino and were not in any way targeted by the officers. Mr. Garcia, on the other hand, was targeted for doing the exact same thing, which is he was recording on his phone, they were recording on their phones, they tackle him to the ground, the other guys are left free to do as they please, right? And so again, the notion that he was interfering with another person's arrest, and they said he got in between officers and somebody else, it's all captured on video. He was
it's not even a good lie.
Feet, like several yards away from what was happening still when they interfered with his ability to lawfully record the incident. So I think simply DHS can spin the story however they want. They can make up stories as they desire, but the videos show reality.
And you know that the Supreme Court, as we all know, last month did rule that ICE can in fact stop people based on race, language, job, or location. So what's the argument you're going to make in court? Are you ready to go up against that?
So I do want to be a little bit more clear that we actually don't know what the Supreme Court was thinking when they issued that order, because they didn't explain themselves. We do have one justice concurrence from Justice Kavanaugh, but I think our case is, regardless, our case is actually different in several respects. The first is that our case deals with private construction sites where the workers there are already presumed to have been verified by employers for their employment status. The other problem is that our case alleges a policy and explains a policy that even Justice Kavanaugh in his concurrence implied would be unconstitutional, which is to keep people detained once they show you evidence of their legal status. And that's exactly what Mr. Garcia has twice experienced. Both times he showed them, the officers, his real ID. Both times they said, we don't care, we're going to keep you detained anyway. So there are real important differences about the policies that are at issue here versus the policies that were before the court on that kind of limited posture that they first heard the case. So we think that we're on strong footing regardless of the way that the case is kind of presented as an analog to that LA
we will
case.
Definitely follow the case. And is he back at work?
He is, but again, like I said, he remains scared, and you have construction association heads down there explaining that members of the Latino community remain terrified to go to work. To the extent that they're doing so, it's out of bravery, it's out of a necessity to feed their families, but you have thousands of Latino construction workers in southern Alabama who are here lawfully and who just want to work in peace and earn an honest living. They have the right to do that.
Jabba, thank
Hello,
you.
everybody.
Appreciate you
Welcome.
being in studio.
We are learning new details about a former Des Moines school superintendent arrested by ICE. According to documents obtained by the Associated Press, Ian Roberts falsely claimed a doctoral degree when applying for the job. He was hired even after the school board learned about the misrepresentation. Let's bring in CBS News correspondent Lana Zach live for us in Iowa City.
The economy is falling apart. The country is falling apart. But what is the White House choosing to focus on right now? Picking a fight with Ariana Grande. See, she committed an unacceptable sin of sharing an Instagram story. It was a post that podcast host Matt Bernstein had posted. And so she posted it. And I like it. There's a lot of text there. I apologize if you're in mobile, you won't be able to see it. But it's a pretty basic thing. It's a sort of question that myself and Nina might ask on our shows. I want to check in with Trump voters. I have one very genuine question. It's been 250 days. Now that immigrants have been violently torn from their families and communities have been destroyed, now that trans people have been blamed for virtually everything and live in fear, now that free speech is on the brink of collapse for us all, has your life gotten better? Have your groceries gotten cheaper? Has your health insurance premium gone down? Has your work-life balance improved? Can you take a vacation yet? Are you happier? Has the widespread suffering of others paid off for you in the way he promised it would, or are you still waiting? And we all know the answers to those questions. It was never going to solve the problems in your life because it had nothing to do with the problems in your life. Whether you're a MAGA voter that approved of mass deportation or not, how was that ever going to help you to own your own home? How was that ever going to help the price of steaks or whatever? It's just not that case. I mean, look, we made the case that in a couple of those areas, those two in particular, it would actually be counterproductive. And that has proven to be the case. But on all that stuff, prices are higher, and willingly so. The tariffs are just Trump choosing to tax you for all of these things. And you're supposed to be placated by the fact that some migrant family you've never met has been broken up, that some trans person who you will never, ever meet doesn't get to live their life with dignity like everyone else, gets just stamped down by the state. How is any of this helping you to live a better, less stressful life? How is this helping your health? How is this helping the financial future of your family? Simple questions. And Ariana Grande has a lot of followers online, so she decided to share those. And the White House spokesperson directly responded to it, as you do, saying, "Save your tears, Ariana, because President Trump's actions ended Joe Biden's inflation crisis." But no, Kush Desai, it didn't. Inflation is still going up. Groceries are like 40% more expensive than they were a year ago. Yeah, there was inflation under Joe Biden, and there's worse inflation now because we had all of the problems we had under Biden of lingering supply chain issues and all of that stuff, except we now also have insane tariffs on the vast majority of the countries on Earth. And so he goes on to say, like, hey, we even cracked down on Ticketmaster for ripping off Ariana Grande's concert-going fans. Get well soon, Ariana. I don't even know what that's a reference to. Is that mocking a medical condition she has? I literally don't know. Also, like, he thinks he's being clever with the Ticketmaster thing. The CEO of Ticketmaster recently went viral for saying that concert tickets are underpriced. We should be charging more. Evidently, they feel like they would be free to do that under Trump. So look, this is a simple thing. All Ariana is doing is pointing to the sort of the core thing, Nina, that you always ask. Is your life better than it was? He made big promises, specific promises, and you thought he's the outsider. He's going to fix these issues. Has he actually done that? And they have freaked out over it. I'm just going to throw out one more thing. Meanwhile, as people are getting more and more concerned about the price of all this stuff, what is Trump doing on social media? He's bragging about how they use only the highest quality 24-karat gold in the Oval Office. It's so beautiful, everyone freaks out when they see the quality and beauty. Best Oval Office ever in terms of success and look, President DJT. And I just want to say thank you for your attention to this matter, America. Sure, you may not be able to afford these basic necessities, but Trump's got great gold. What do you think, Nina?
Let them eat cake.
That's what it's feeling like.
Shit, he's got Nina fucking Turner on the back burner. I did not mean for that to rhyme, but I could rhyme at any time. Okay? Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks for checking out the stream, if you're checking it out, or the VOD. Free Palestine, fuck Israel, crush Zionism forever. Peace out.
Where's your fucking badge, you pigs? We go hard for Palestine. We escalate for Palestine. We fight for Palestine. We give it everything we got. We do not work with the police. We do not point people out to the police. We do not lay hands on our comrades. When we go hard for our people, you stand out the way. If you ain't with it,